I feel like I do the boomer pause when I come on stream where I wait to see if I'm live and then I say hello. And that's what's happening right now. Let's see. Stream should see us. Stream should hear us. Hello, everyone. Okay, yes, we are live. They can hear and see us. Okay, hello, everyone. Please let me know how volume sounds. Let me know how the ladies sound. We have a great panel of people today to discuss the ethics around masking. And this is in relation to autism or neurodivergency or even just being alternative. And so let's go ahead and dive into it. I think what we'll start with is just, I guess, really fast, maybe hand waving as I introduce your names alone so people know who's talking. So, Madam Genevieve, wave for the crowd so they know who you are. Wonderful. Harmony, Maiden Monster, perfect. And Irene, Thought Spot. Perfect. I love to see it. Okay. So for this discussion, ladies, I thought we'd start off with something actually pretty important and basic and foundational. What is authenticity? Like, what is that? Anybody
Yeah.
want to start?
So when I was thinking about this question, it actually, because it's one of those things that like right off the bat you think you know what it means, but then you actually start to think about it and you're like, wait, like does that just mean being there seem for so what I came down to is that there's the tension between like my true nature and also my aspirational sense. So there's like the tension between the two of those, and then maybe authenticity is what like calls me on within that creative tension. Because I'm not just gonna be like an asshole because that's my nature. You know what I mean? There's the aspirational element of like, oh, how are my values informed? How's my relationship to the outside world, informing my sense of authenticity? So I think that authenticity is really about like managing that tension between my true nature and my aspirational self.
Yeah, I see that a lot in the world where people think authenticity means sort of like unfiltered, which all unfiltered translates to then just like mean and unnecessarily cruel. But I think this also plays into that psychological phenomenon of people thinking you're more authentic if you cuss or curse because it means like you're willing to like cross some barrier of shielding, but in reality it doesn't indicate that. But I do think it's a mistake we make of thinking people are more honest because they seem almost like crueler or blunter or ruder or something like that.
Yeah, like more willing to hurt people or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as if that's more authentic instead of just like
Right.
I mean maybe it's authentic to a cruel person, but is it really authenticity?
But then where do values come in? Because
Exactly.
being true to myself and being authentic, my values are a huge part of that. So, yeah, for me that doesn't quite work. It
So
doesn't mean just being, yeah,
maybe there's a risk
rebel.
of like unfiltered authenticity is as inappropriate as like going to the bathroom in the public sphere. Like maybe go to the toilet. Like maybe it's like that where like we want to be natural in ourselves but maybe don't like maybe not in public. You know what I mean? Like maybe there's a line which actually plays into masking. So
Mm.
for me I think of authenticity as the me that is the safest and most calm and most real, and whether or not that version of me needs to like that whether or not the world needs to interact with that version of me, or how does that version of me need to interact with the world. So then I think masking comes in because I don't think the world is owed my authenticity,
Yeah.
but like
Mhm.
to some extent I also want to be the real me, especially as a streamer. But then of course as well it's like but I want to keep something for me that's like my vulnerability or something like that. What do you guys think? Irene, Genevieve, what do you think?
I was
I
thinking
think
about
it
this
is a
earlier today.
We'll do Irene and then we'll do Jen. Go
you go
ahead.
ahead.
I was thinking about this earlier today, and I was thinking about the difference between masking and scripting, because I feel like scripting and code switching, in a sense, or no, let me correct that. Masking and code switching, the difference between the two. I feel like code switching, in a sense, could be very authentic. It's just, it takes you observing the people you're talking to, the environment you're in, and figuring out what aspects of my authentic self do I want to present. Whereas masking is a little bit different. I think masking implies that you're covering a certain part of yourself up and putting on another persona, in a sense, whereas code switching is less about hiding yourself. It's more so about what parts of myself do I want to access and bring forth to this moment. Um, and I feel like, remind me again what the question was.
What is authenticity? Like, what actually is it?
I feel like authenticity is honestly just you existing and making whatever decisions based off of what actually resonates with you. Um, and it's that simple.
Versus
I feel like
masking is sort of like what is it's for other people. It's not for you in a way.
I think it could be for both. I mean, a
Mm.
lot of high masking neurodivergence mask obviously because it's a survival thing. We don't want to feel like our job is being threatened. We don't want to be alienated in any sort of way. I think if it was that easy, of course, a lot of us wouldn't want to mask, right? But I think the difference between authenticity and masking is I think authenticity kind of returns a lot of power back to you, regardless of external circumstances. So you do things, say things, draw boundaries, or don't say things and don't do things because it actually resonates with you. And you do it despite how other people may respond to it. Whereas I think masking is more so a protective or coping mechanism to control what happens to you and how people perceive you and things like that. In a sense, it's you doing what you can in a world where the control is in other people's hands, in a sense, whereas authenticity is more so coming from the control is in your hands. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, especially the word
Agency.
protective. Yeah.
Yeah. So agency is a big part of authenticity. Like that like maybe some people might call it free will, but that like element of like actually having agency, being able to make choices about like how you express to the world or
Yeah,
not, which is really
yeah,
interesting for me as someone who values agency and autonomy. It's like,
Definitely.
oh, they're actually like connected, agency, autonomy, and authenticity, the A's.
Definitely.
Mhm.
Genevieve, I'd love to hear from you.
I like that Harmony brought up values and value system a few moments ago because I think that's a really important part of being authentic, right? Like in my definition of authenticity is going to come from being able to make decisions, engage in behaviors, things that feel in line with your values and not being influenced by outside pressures and what someone else might value or what someone else might prioritize, but being able to behave in a way that feels true to what your values are.
I
I
like
think that,
go.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. I'm writing notes.
Okay, okay. I like the descriptor protective for masking because I don't think that you're not trying to completely hide your authentic self, but I think you're trying to filter it a bit, right? Like to protect yourself maybe from um, other people's perceptions or misunderstanding of what your authentic self looks like. But I do think that I think you can mask and still be authentic. It's just showing only part of the picture instead of 100% of the picture.
Yeah, I'd like to think of it like that as well. Like I think mostly we get because everything in life is basically survival first and then you learn to live, right? Like that's the journey of a child through adulthood, through like figuring yourself out to being introspective. Like there is a journey of feeling like you're in survival mode, like maybe it's too much and then you realize like, "Oh, okay, I've got a handle. I know how to play the game. I understand how to socialize. I know how to do things. I can be independent. I can whatever that means, whatever it looks like for you in your life, right? Everyone's so unique. But I think there is a rational reason to filter, and I think everyone does it. Like when I did my autism assessment, the doctors were telling me that look, everybody has a variation of like masking or filtering or changing at like a work meeting versus a date with a friend or a family member or hanging out with. And so the question is, how do you feel when you come home? And so I was like, well, what's the difference from that and just like
Mhm.
autistic masking? And they were talking about how it impacts you. It's not that you do it, it's that you are impacted significantly differently. And I was like, "Okay." And so they were like, so example, like if you and your partner went for a dinner meeting at like a work function and somebody asks you, what do you do for a living, and you had to explain that, how much more tiring is that, for you than somebody else? And I'm like, oof, like that's like it's like
Mm.
a whole thing, right? So when I think about even coming onto stream, I have a job that allows me to, and I think a lot of us do, like content creation allows us to, at least in the way that I think a lot of us do it, to be a lot of ourselves. But obviously, I'm still coming to work and I'm still paying my bills and I still have to be professional. But then, even in my industry, because I'm specifically a streamer industry is specifically supposed to make the audience feel like they're closer to you, or you're hanging out with a friend,
Mhm.
or you feel like you're seeing a real person because they're on stream all day, right? There's some narrative there that is supposed to play on parasociality, but also is like it can be so inappropriate for both the audience and the streamer. So I try to keep it like very professional. Like I try to end stream appropriately. I try to like say, I try to like be good with my chat in a particular way, but I obviously have to be professional. And I guess that's like the form of professional masking. But here's the secret. I don't think when I come to work professionally, that's my masking. I think my masking is when I show up on stream and I don't like stim, or I don't get up when I want to. I sit in my chair
Oh.
and I like focus, or not saying like, I have to get up now. Like, don't get up now. Wait 10 seconds. Or like making sure that I'm not doing the things I want to do that I would do at home when I'm comfortable. Does
Like,
that
things
make
that would
sense?
feel more disruptive to the audience.
Right. Or to the situation or to the context. Or I've noticed that in certain social situations, I'll be like, I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to like stim and be myself. And I realize like, oh, over the years, people haven't been as receptive to that because it gives off not professional, but more than that, to the audience or to the viewership or whoever I'm around, it gives, I hate to say this, but it gives like mental health. And I hate that narrative because if I'm around other neurodivergent people or just other interesting, like quirky people, like whatever word we want to use, they're not thinking mental health. And so there's like a survival element in which I have to make sure I'm not conveying mental health, which there's nothing wrong with mental health, but in a world that punishes you for it, well, now I'm in a survival situation. Does that kind of make
Mhm.
sense?
Especially when
Yeah.
it's something is professional and earning you money, right? Like, that is literally survival. That can affect your paycheck and your living situation.
Definitely. Definitely. Any thoughts on this or
Mhm.
any other thoughts? And by the way, if especially Irene, since this is your first time on a panel with us, if you want to change the topic or switch modes or bring something else to mind, please do.
I'm so bad at interjecting. But with what you just said, I feel like that's a big reason why a lot of high maskers don't stim, and it's not because we don't need to, it's because it looks like we are crazy when we're stimming, like, uh, it looks like you're not paying attention, it looks like you can't sit still, I feel like when people see a person stimming, they think to themselves, "What's wrong with you? Why do you have to do all of that just to, like, get through this conversation?" Um, and people don't tend to think, "Oh, you're doing what you need to do to stay in this conversation." They're thinking, "What's wrong with you that you have to do that to stay in this
Mm.
conversation?" And then there's all the other invisible implications of if you're the type of person that has to stim to just pay attention or be in this, then that means you're probably incapable of doing all these other things. And that's kind of what we've been seeing in the discourse again and again. Neurodivergent or autistic people can't do this. They can't have relationships. They can't cook their own meals. They can't have jobs because and it all comes down to the needs that neurodivergent people have. Something as simple as stimming during a conversation instead of sitting completely still. Something as small as that has so many of these other invisible implications zip tied to it, you know?
Yeah, I think that what you just said is so good for my brain to hear, which is that because this whole panel was inspired by a podcast I had made, and it's okay if you girls hadn't seen it, but about like the idea that like people will say like, oh, be your authentic self, be natural, don't get plastic surgery, don't dye your hair, don't try to fit into the world, be yourself. But as an autistic person, hearing that my whole life, now that I've been diagnosed, I can't tell you how many times I look back and I'm like, oh, they were not talking to me. They were not talking to me. Because when I tried to show up authentically, it got me in trouble. And then I realized like, oh, you're talking to like neurotypical, like holistic people or you're talking to somebody else. And so I made this video just saying like, I don't think they're talking to us because, like, yeah, when we show up and we stim, now all of a sudden you're looking at me like, what are you doing? Or I even noticed with my alternative lifestyle stuff, like my BDSM stuff, people loved it when you did alternative stuff like randomly or for fun or quirky stuff, but they don't like it when it's a lifestyle. When it's a lifestyle, now you're just like, oh. But if it's like you're a celebrity and you're on Conan O'Brien or something, it's like, "Oh, you went to a kink party once? Tell us about that, Brad Pitt." It's like, oh, fun. But if it's a lifestyle, now it's like, oh, so like you're a quirky girl who stims. You're so cool. You're a person who actually needs to stim to relax. What is going on?
Mm.
And that's the context of when people say be authentic. I have to tell myself, not you. They're not talking to you. You know? So what do you guys think about that in terms of to what length should we go to mask in a way that doesn't come at the expense of our authenticity, but does help us survive in a world that isn't interested in our authenticity? Like I say on stream, I feel like the world doesn't want our authenticity, but they want me to make them feel like they're getting my authentic self. How do you guys think that plays a
That
role in
feels
how we
so
present?
true.
Right?
I think that feels really true, like, in society in general, and particularly in your field of work or content creation in general, right? People feel this desire to wanna know you as a person, the real you, feel like they get to see behind the curtain and all of that, but they don't actually really wanna see behind the curtain a lot of the times, because it kills their fantasy of what they've imagined you to be. And if you show up in a way that is authentic to you, but differs from this fantasy that they've created, now we have a major disconnect.
Definitely.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think about boundaries, like what personal boundaries do you have? Because you could be authentic but still be private and not want to share certain parts of you or certain aspects of what you've been through. But there's still ways to talk around it, There's still ways to talk about the concept of something you went through or the lesson
Mhm.
you took away from a certain experience without talking about it. I think how authentic you want to be is it's hard because with this topic, there's different parts of the journey that comes with authenticity. I'm thinking about me in my early 20s versus now, and how I would answer these questions is literally so completely different. But at least now, after living a few years of my life where everything I do is built around how authentic I could be to myself, versus in my early 20s, I was in a lot of environments where I don't really get to choose that because I was in school, for example. You can't choose who you're around in school and, you know, the types of environments you're in. So I think the less choice you have around what types of people you're around or environments you're in, you have less choice of how authentic you want to be. But I think in a sense, it's up to you as to how much of my life do I want to actually rebuild from the ground up so that I don't have to sacrifice that part of myself. So for me, working from home with this platform, I could be authentic as I want. I don't have to deal with coworkers. I don't have to, talk to a bunch of people that I don't want to talk to. If anything, everyone I talk to at this point in my life is out of choice. So, in a sense, yes, I get to be as authentic as I want to, but I also had to spend years building a life where I get to do that. And I think that's one of those things where authenticity is one of those things where you have to almost commit to earning it in your life. It's almost in a weird way luxury because if not, you always have to ask yourself, am I willing to deal with whatever repercussions for the sake of authenticity? That's always going to be a question as a neurodivergent. Do I want to be authentic or not? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, am I okay with whatever repercussions that's going to follow after this, good or bad? Am I
Yeah.
in a place where I'm able to put up with it?
What about Jen?
Yeah.
Can you speak to this? Because you were in corporate before you went independent, right?
Yeah,
How does that like relate to
yeah.
you in a way? Because you must have had to shield and mask and filter all through your corporate life, right?
Yeah, when we were preparing for this panel and looking at some of the different like questions and prompts and stuff, that was definitely one of the parts of my life that really kind of felt most relevant to this, and that's ultimately one of the reasons why I left corporate, is I was really tired of having to mask so much of who I am and how I present myself and how I speak, and things that I'm interested in. I worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies that are both very conservative, family friendly, very restrictive on how you present yourself, um, physically and also just, verbally through your behaviors down to, um, different gestures that were acceptable and not acceptable, in the office and in the workplace that, um, really do kind of go against your ingrained human nature. And it I am not somebody who's neurodivergent, but in that situation, having done that for about a decade, all through my 20s was really exhausting. I will say it's 100% a luxury that I was able to step away from that. I know, um, we all have to make professional choices that pay our bills and take care of our families and meet our survival needs, obviously. And I'm fortunate that I was able to find something that did feel more authentic to me that still allowed me to keep my lifestyle in a way that I enjoy. Um, but in order to be successful in that professional environment, I really, really had to mask a tremendous amount of who I was. The decision to leave that was difficult because there were parts of the job that I did really enjoy, and I think I did really well, and there were coworkers that I loved working with. Um, but I feel so much more free on a day-to-day basis that I can now show up as just me and not have my work me and my social me and my private me. I'm able to have them be really pretty much one and the same. Obviously, my private me is still private, but my social me and my professional me, my public facing, is really much more in line. Pardon
Yeah.
me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious about that. Chad actually inspired a question, I guess. And Chad, I'm not coming for you. I think that's an interesting comment. You said, I think we should still stim. That will push away many people that don't understand, which is hard and can bring many disadvantages. But since I want the world to be authentic, I have to start with me. I think that's like a really heartwarming sentiment. But I want to be a little grounded and focused on like retirement and survivability and like being the next generation of adults. How does that play into the responsibility we have as adults aging into our death ultimately? Like the world being authentic, I'm not sure I want an authentic world. I'm pretty sure I just want a world that's nice and kind, and I'm not sure that's authentic. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, I'm not sure if I want, going back to what Harmony said at the very beginning, like, do we want an authentic world if the authenticity is rudeness? Like, I want kindness and compassion, but I want functionality and I want realistic measures. So, especially for neurodivergent communities, again, when I hear that message, like, be your authentic self, they're not talking to us. And the disadvantages that come towards people who hear that and think, "Oh, I'll just be myself," is like life or death in certain situations. So like Irene said, yes, you can build, as I have, as many of us have, towards independence as close as we can get to it, because I'm still relying on YouTube existing to have a job ultimately. Like, I still have to play along with TOS. I still have to follow the rules. I still have to garner an audience. I still have to be a person who shows up on stream and doesn't just talk the way I talk with my neurodivergent friends. I have to talk in the way that a neurotypical might hear me, and I have to think about that. And it's not worth it to me to be so authentic that I end up like unhoused. But then at the same time, I
Right.
I personally think there's a way to find balance and joy in authenticity without it needing to show up professionally all the time 24/7. Personally. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
That was such an
absolutely.
interesting comment. Um, the way that I think about it is if you want to just show up as your authentic self, you have to be in a really specific place in your journey to do it effectively and healthily. And I'm going to try to put this into words. The way that I see it is if you're going to be unmasked and yourself, let's say stimming, for example, you have to be in a place where if people are going to judge you, if they're going to um, pass judgments on your character and your capabilities and whether you're likable or not, you have to be ready to hold space for that in a sense where I understand where these judgments are coming from. It makes sense for you, but you have to be so good with yourself that it doesn't impact you or affect you. And not everyone is there yet. And I think that's where the conversation can get really confusing. So, for example, uh, let's say in conversation you anecdotally mention, "Oh, my parents died when I was younger," and then someone gets really sullen and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That must be really hard." And you're like, "Why? It's okay. I'm in a good place now." That sort of self-empowered state, I think, is necessary when other people don't know how to process you yet or process your story. There's a lot of characteristics that come with being neurodivergent that people will inherently assume is negative. And when they see you enacting it, they're going to be the types to, even if they're not negatively judging you, maybe feel a sense of pity, maybe being like, "Oh, I don't know how to process this properly." But if you're able to just not necessarily sit there and convince them like, "Oh, I am smart, I am capable." Just do it through just how you treat yourself. So never really showing, let's say, doubt in yourself or negatively judging yourself, and you're confident in your strengths and your capabilities. That kind of shows through action, to this person who may not know how to process you yet. Oh, this is giving me a baseline on how I should process Irene. She's different, but she's confident in whatever she has going on and she's steadfast in it. And that kind of gives me a better baseline. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Definitely. Now, I
Yeah.
know a
I
couple.
mean,
Yeah.
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 Jen, Harmony, who? Both of you. Go at the same time. I'm just
Go ahead,
kidding.
Harmony.
Okay, well, I was just gonna say, no, for me, this is kind of where the sensory issues come in and managing my nervous system. Because the more I'm able to care for my nervous system, my sensory needs, and like unburden my nervous system in that sense, the more capacity I have to be able to bear the burden of the mask. And the funny thing about masking is that it's actually because of the way that our subjective filters are interacting with the objective world. It's when I mask, I'm actually trying to translate my natural state in such a way that that even though it's not my natural state, it translates more accurately to the other person, like via their subjective interpretation of me. Does that make sense? It's like I have to like change the way I act in order to better communicate who I am to this person who might have a completely different experience of reality. And so it kind of seems paradoxical because it's like, well, I'm trying to like give you a better picture of who I am by changing who I am. You know what I mean? Like based on how you interpret what I do. And so that's just kind of exhausting sometimes.
Yeah.
But the more I can care for like all my sensory needs, all my stimming needs, my nervous system, unburden my nervous system from being on high alert all the time, the more that kind of I can bear that burden and do it more effectively, and not feel so exhausted afterwards. And that's just kind of, there's an ebb and a flow for that. Sometime I just don't have it in me. I don't have it in me to do it. And that's when maybe I'll spend more time alone. I'll isolate a little bit more because I don't have the spoons to manage how other people perceive me in that way.
Yeah, it seems like you do need to be very cognizant of your spoons for that day, for that situation, and kind of tweak accordingly for every scenario. And that is an exhausting situation, but it does ultimately make for a smoother social experience, I think.
And I mean, the bottom line is like I'm human still, like I want connection and love. And because people so often misinterpret my natural way of being in the world, it kind of forces me, if I do care about connection and love, to put that mask on. But that's kind of where like assessing like, okay, well, is it really worth doing all that work? And are those the people that I want to connect with if I have to do so much work to like and change myself to get them to see me, like sort of paradoxically see me with that mask. And so I think, yeah, finding the right people is important, but also then like maybe there's a few exceptions where it's like, no, it's okay. I'm going to mask for this person because maybe they're like a family member or, um, for whatever reason, I find value in that. But ultimately,
Yeah.
just surrounding myself more with people who kind of who get the right interpretation of who I am without me having to change it so much in order for them to be able to understand it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mhm.
It does. Like I actually okay, I have this thing where I believe like people can't see all of you until they do, and like that's like a high compatibility friend or high compatibility partner, but we all see parts of each other. Like there's always meet somebody, you love anime, I love anime. I feel like I see a part of you, you love my favorite anime, you love my favorite character. Well, now we're like, we feel like we're seeing each other. And then there's like really seeing like the just like the expansive part of a person's consciousness that just like, whoa, makes you feel so connected to somebody. When I think about the differences between how some of my family members, even my inner circle, can't see all parts of me, but I also don't work to mask in front of them, I think of that like reality difference is like, I don't really mask in front of my family because they're just going to be like, oh, that's Brittany. Like, that's just who she is. But I don't feel completely seen by my family. But that feels like a better environment than when I'm in working situations and I'm like, and mask. But then the irony is like I'm seen the least at work probably, right? Because like there's coworkers, like they don't know me like that, which is fair. And I wanted to say that way. But then I have to mask more. But then sometimes I look back on my memories now of my attempting to mask. And to be fair, I wasn't diagnosed yet, so maybe I would have played the game better if I was. But I look back now and I'm like, even your masking was bad. You were a bad masker. Like you're bad at social cues, even when you're trying. And I'm like gagging at this idea of like, why do I feel like a late bloomer? And then I know this is such a neurodivergent thing. I follow some great podcasts that talk about late blooming and neurodivergency. And I think a part of it comes down to like that social expectation and reaching milestones that make sense with that networking, the socializing, building community. And like usually for me, if I'm like in a social situation and I don't want to be there, I'm just like, I'm going home. And now I realize in hindsight why people stay out and they make connections and they keep drinking at the bar and they don't just go home because they're hoping to be the last one at the bar with the boss, or they're hoping to help, like they're hoping to get someone's email, and I'm just like, I'm going to go home. I'm tired. And so now I realize like, oh, if I could do it again, would I have made those attempts to connect with people socially for work, especially? Because again, when I think about masking, I think about showing up in situations in which there is some line of a requirement of performativity, whether it's like in public or at work or somewhere where it's not safe. That's why I think about masking for my brain. Do you guys think about it that way, or is it just my brain? Because why would I need to mask if I felt safe? Or if I felt, you know what I mean? And it's safe isn't always negative, by the way. Comfortable.
Comfortable. Yeah, that seems like maybe a better.
Or like appropriate even. Like it's not always appropriate for me to stim in certain situations, right? So like,
Yeah.
Interesting. I think this is where like my interest in like human psychology comes into play, because it's almost like I'm too aware that everybody is having a different experience, and how can I translate my experience in a way that is the most accurate for them to interpret it the most accurately.
right.
That's what I think of. So maybe it doesn't even feel like danger per se, but just like this need, this drive to want to be seen and to see. And so like, how can I bend in the right way for your lens to accurately see me,
I think about it, and this crosses over to every social situation that I think a lot of us have been through, where it's like everyone's reacting a particular way to something happening, but you're not having that embodied experience. And you're like, I don't feel this way. I don't feel this way. And everyone's acting like either sad or really happy or really excited. And I'm the only one who doesn't feel that way. What do I do? Fast. Do I follow the script and pretend I'm also having this experience? Or do I be honest and say, I'm not having this experience? And I've done both. and I speak anecdotally for my own life because that's the only one I know personally. So that's why I hope to hear from you guys. But like I will say it's been a hit or miss for both scenarios. So it just depends. But sometimes people want me to play along as if I'm getting it, even though I'm not having that experience. Or sometimes they like that I don't have to play along and they can still enjoy themselves. But that's what I'm trying to like. That's why I was so inspired with this idea of when people say like be your authentic self. I'm like, I don't. I don't.
Well, and then there's the funny question of like their perception of me. Like maybe I am being my authentic self and they don't interpret it that way because it's so offensive.
Mm.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Or
like
so like
you know that
upper.
there's that
Yeah.
autistic guy who everyone cannot decide if he's playing a character to this day, and I'm like, he's just autistic. And they're like, but is it a
Yeah,
character? I'm
I know
like,
the guy. He's like really intense.
Which
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
guy?
just like,
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, but like he's an old school YouTuber, and everyone's like, it's an act, and I was like, well, it's his personality. Or like his, I don't know if he's actually come out officially or people just say that about him. But like to me, I'm like, you're just neurodivergent or whatever he is. I don't mean to put something on him if he hasn't
I'm
identified
out
that way.
as autistic.
Yeah. I don't know if he's come out as, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not like sometimes it's not a character, but then the character, that's why I mean to say when people say like be authentic, but they want the version of me that makes them think I'm being authentic.
You can mask authenticity.
You
There's certain like
can.
markers that you can do that make people think, like you said, the swearing or
Exactly.
whatever,
Yeah.
make people think you're being really authentic. But like, what if my values are such that like I show up in a way authentically that looks really inauthentic to somebody else? You know, that's
100.
like that's kind of what I mean when it's like that's where the pressure comes from to like actually change my behavior to better represent myself to the external world, you know?
Yeah.
Like, no, you're getting it wrong. And I know that you're going to get it wrong because of X, Y, and Z. And I can see, I have the pattern recognition and all that. And so then I'm going to go and just tweak myself a little. And sometimes it does feel good in the moment to like feel like, okay, even though I'm changing myself, they're still, they're getting the right version of me because of that change.
Yeah.
But then
The end result is what you're
yes,
going for here, even if
right.
the steps were a little
Yeah. But then
all
you go
over the
home and
place.
you're just exhausted. You're just exhausted mentally, physically, like, oh, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's so
Yeah.
much work to maintain that and to be aware of that and to see and understand those patterns, but not necessarily just do it. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like you have to study it and then do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had an
I feel
interesting
like
thought where
Jen
oh,
and then Irene.
do you want to go ahead?
no,
Okay.
you go.
Me?
Jen
Mhm.
and then Irene. Yeah.
Okay. I had an interesting thought where, all of us are kind of creative peoples. We all do some form of running our own business or content creation or something of that nature where we have to make ourselves the brand in a way, right? Like, I feel like that for myself when I'm doing any kind of online marketing or even in certain collaborations that I do where I'm like, I really want to introduce people to Madame Genevieve and what that brand looks like, even though the brand is also me, but at the same time, they're not seeing 100% of the authentic Genevieve, right? They're seeing the Madame Genevieve brand, and I want that to be authentic to who I am, and I think that it is. I don't think that I'm putting on, like, a totally different persona in any capacity, in any of my, like, images or videos or anything that I put out, um, but I do know that there are parts of my personality or parts of my thought process, lifestyle, etc., that I purposely don't include in the Madame Genevieve brand that are still me, right? I don't know. How do you guys balance your brand versus your actual self?
Yeah. Irene, you go about what the thought was in your head before you lose it, but let's write down that because that's a great question.
Mhm. I was just gonna say that I feel like, at least for me, where I'm at in life right now, I care more about being authentic to, my essence and bringing that forth in every sort of interaction I have. So I don't really observe the situation and think to myself like how I want to present myself anymore or what's appropriate or what's going to be more easily accepted. It's just I show up and the line of questioning on my end that I've kind of replaced with the old, thought process is more so about if people understand you, they understand you. It's that simple. If they don't, they don't, and it's fine. And I don't have to put in work to make them understand me. I don't have to necessarily learn their language and figure out how to communicate in their language so that they can understand me. It's just you see me or you don't. My job is to just do my best at conveying myself accurately and in a way that aligns with my value system. Um, and
That's
I
where the
think
boundaries come in. Is that what you meant by boundaries? Like almost like an emotional boundary. Like I'm not going to do that. Like
energetic boundary, yeah.
okay,
Like being able to hold space for if people don't understand me, that's fine. And I can understand that. But I'm not going to take on the extra responsibility of then, needing to do the emotional labor for you and mental labor of, well, then how can I get myself to be more understandable by this person? It's just, oh, they don't understand me and they don't see me. That makes sense. And maybe you could muster up enough energy to understand why they can't see you. But even then, you don't have to do that. You could kind of check in with yourself and think, I have low spoons today. I'm not even going to try to unpack what they're going through and why they can't see me. But sometimes you do have enough spoons and you're like, oh, they can't see me because of these things. And then it's a weird paradox where you start to learn more about this person through their inability to see you. Um, Even though they don't actually outright communicate those aspects of themselves. But um, another aspect of this is kind of shifting from how presentable can I make myself and leaning more towards what presence do I want to bring to this interaction? So I'm not someone that wants to be seen. I want to be someone that's felt and experienced. Like every time I'm
Okay.
talking to someone, I want them to feel my energy and what I'm about. And that's it. I don't want them to just look at me and pass judgment because they're probably going to learn really quickly that what they see is not really what you get. So um, it kind of helps create a container in a sense to have people step in and be like, oh, this sort of interaction with Irene isn't what I'm used to. I'm going to have to rely more on energies and actually seeing how much we align and how much we vibe outside of whether we look like we would align. Um, and I ask myself instead of how likable am I being, I ask myself, how sincere am I? Um, so you have to be okay with people just not liking you or misunderstanding you. Um, Not everyone is going to like you, but as long as you're sincere, I think that should be the goal. Like, do you regret walking away how much of yourself you shared? And sometimes you'll walk away with people disliking you, but you could at least say to yourself, I honored myself. I like the way that I answered things. I like what I brought. And this time around, people didn't see it. And that's okay. That's their journey. And other times, I think that's the upside to all this. You'll walk away with people almost connecting with you and understanding you even deeper than they would if you focused more so about them and how they're receiving you. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think about it in layers. Do you guys think about this in layers? Because I want to make it clear too, because I know an audience is listening. Like, I want to make it clear, like, I feel like what you're talking about, Irene, is what you should be like in your actual life when you're having a relationship with yourself. Like, you need to be kind to yourself and compassionate and love yourself and not let people who don't see you get in any way into this thing that is your consciousness, right? Like, I want to make that abundantly clear. And I think as long as that part is good, I feel like that part is so good in my life. I'm like, okay, now the other parts. Like the other parts in this part are separate, which moves on to Genevieve's question. Brittany,
Mhm.
this consciousness has nothing to do with this because this doesn't ruin this. This though is this is birthed out of this, but this does not make this. Like work doesn't make me. I birth work. So the foundation of who I am cannot be swayed by work. The foundation can only cut it off, but work is from me. And so I think about that as like when we present in the world, we're presenting something we worked on. Like when parents have children, they think of This isn't good. But they think of it as like their creation, their work of art, their mini me. And that's how I think of everything I create is sort of like my kid. Like this is my baby. And I'm wondering how my baby is showing up in the world. And like that's a very different thing than I think like for me I separated. Do you guys separate it or is that just my brain? No, Irene, you don't separate it. Interesting. So that's not how your
But that
brain.
also makes it harder for me to function on a more general sense in this society because I've never been a good masker. Like actually changing myself personality wise and how I speak and relate to people. I've always been really bad at that. I think that's where my social deficit comes from. But that's also why I relied so much on physical masking, like the actual appearance part of it. So I feel like most of my masking in my early 20s through adolescence was just physical masking,
Mm.
making sure I fit in as much as possible with my appearance. But then as soon as someone talked to me, whether it's friendship or career, immediately they're like, something is off with this. And I've had to learn how to create a job where I don't have to mask because I can't mask appropriately.
Mm.
So I don't relate to that in a sense where like my job is a separate thing. I relate to it in a sense where I don't share a lot of personal things anymore with my job. So I've tried to detach myself and talk more about uh, concepts rather than my actual experience. But at the end of the day, the things I talk about on my channel is things that I think about in my own time, is things that I would talk to my family about, my loved ones, and met like a producer on a TV show, I would talk to them the exact same way too. So I don't necessarily edit myself to seem professional on my professional platform, if that makes sense. I don't know if I answered your question or
Definitely.
A lot
Definitely.
of sense.
whatever. Okay.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like the different profiles, impact how these things kind of are expressed. Yeah, I'm just like such a heavy masker. It's almost like my brain does it without even like me being aware of it very much and, until I, start having chronic illness and like all that other stuff. But
Yeah.
What's your
and
zodiac sign?
me, I'm a
Yeah.
Gemini.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, Gemini.
Beautiful energy.
Oh, thank you. And I likewise, by the way. Yeah, and I do kind of enjoy it. I enjoy playing around with the masks and seeing, what what comes from like different ways that I show up and stuff like that. And so in that sense, like that's one of the things I like about my job is that it is a very curated profession where I curate this persona that shows up in a very specific way when I'm at work. Um and I enjoy that because I know all the rules. I know exactly who I'm supposed to be in that little container. And that's something about that is just like I don't have to do all that other weird social work that sometimes is difficult for me. But I do think I loved what you said about the boundaries. I took so much away from that because that is I feel like where I struggle is with having those like emotional energetic boundaries. It's almost like I want too much to connect and I'm not always wise about like who I'm trying to connect with, who I'm trying to show myself, you know. And so that was like, ooh, that's good. Like having those boundaries. And also I'm like on this journey right now too where I'm not trying to do certain types of labor for other people. Like they need to show up and do that. And maybe that's one of the ways that I can be more wise about who I interact with. Like who doesn't require me to do certain types of labor,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
really good food for thought, yeah. For me.
Yeah, I think this conversation is so interesting because the words mean so many different things to different people. And the way we think about it, like even the way like Irene, I wonder, okay, I feel like I could read your mind right now a little bit. Maybe. Because I wonder, because we've talked about this in private.
That me.
I'm the kind of person who masks all the time but badly. And I'm the kind of person that overshares but never feels like she's ever telling anyone who she is. And so I fall into this conundrum of people feeling like Brittany says everything, but I feel like I've told you nothing. And then at the same time, people like will feel like, oh, Brittany's so authentic. But I feel like the most authentic part of Brittany is the part of Brittany that doesn't have to think when she talks. And if I have to think about what I'm saying at all, because I'm afraid of how you're going to interpret it, I am now having an anxiety spike, and therefore I'm thinking, and now I'm worrying, and now I'm concerned, and now I feel afraid of backlash because I'm afraid I'm going to be misunderstood and unseen. And now so then a part of me is like, I share, but I share in a way that I think will make sense to the listener. I did a panel once a collab with a person, and they said, it's amazing to me how many, like, is it BPD? Is it autism? Who knows? But they were like, do you mirror people when you talk to them? I was like, kind of, but like I try to figure out who I'm talking to and then I vibe with them. But then it's a misunderstanding of the categorization. Like, I'm not trying to fake who I am so we can get along. I'm trying to bring out the version of me that gets along with you. Because you know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Because I feel like often people say like, oh, just be yourself. We'll get along. Again, it feels like a trap. Like, this feels like a trap, you know? So
It makes me think of like bubble hopping a little bit, right? Where like
definitely.
depending on which bubble I might be in at that moment, and what I'm hoping to accomplish in that situation. Like I'm
Right.
gonna maybe wear a slightly different mask, and it's not that I'm being someone different. It's just let me show you that portion of
Right.
who I am. Let me focus
Right.
on that or highlight that.
And it's not just for them. I want to make it abundantly clear. I'm not telling, I don't want autistic people to hear me say like, be less of yourself. I'm saying the world isn't owed you. Like, I feel like sometimes we think the world needs to see us when the world doesn't even see itself. And we're the only ones putting ourselves at risk, is what I'm saying. I feel like it's a risk
Mm.
we don't even know we're taking because we think
But
everyone else is doing it when they're not.
That does go back to the safety thing too, because as social primates, having a sense of connection in a group is like vital for survival. You know, that's like
Right.
as tiny little babies, if we're not connected, we're dead. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
it's like, oh, it is, you know.
So we need to find
Yeah.
some similar ground. We need to find
Yes.
some way to feel as if we're relating to this person, connecting to that person.
Signaling the right things to
Um,
this person. Like, even I think about back when I was a nanny, like people trusted me with the lives of their children. The last
Mm.
thing I want to do is send any signal to them that I am not showing up today serious and ready and capable. And so like a
mhm.
big part of that is showing up. Like I remember I would ask my nanny families like, do you mind if I dye my hair blue? Because that might look unprofessional to other people who see me with your baby. And they were like, nope, we're in Seattle. You can dye your hair blue. You can get a nose ring. Like, this is a progressive city. No one's going to treat you differently here. But if we were in a different place, maybe we wouldn't have our nanny color their hair blue. Because ultimately, even whether you're neurotypical or whatever, it doesn't matter. You're still engaging with strangers. So again, like, I think this goes back to this idea of like, who is this conversation for? The Brittany who is at home, she does not mask. The Brittany who's in public, only when she wants to and when she chooses to, right? But then the question is, again, I think it goes back to that narrative of like, when people say be your authentic self, like make sure you know what they're trying to say, because to them, they could be signaling what they think that means like smile more, be your authentic self, like laugh more. Like they don't even know what they're saying themselves. Like, who are they saying it to and who's listening to it? Because what if you're an edgy boy on the internet who's like, yeah, I'm gonna be myself.
Form authenticity. That's what they're saying.
Exactly. So then again, I'm not trying to limit anyone's perspective. I'm trying to say like, I am not understanding this message that people keep sending, and I don't know if that's a unique experience to my brain and how it works.
I keep having this really possibly inappropriate thought here. Maybe not inappropriate. I don't know. Do you guys, it reminds me of this line from a show that's really stupid. And I'm sorry that it's what keeps popping up into my head. But did you guys ever watch or hear of the show Workaholics?
Yeah.
It's like an older show, right? Okay. So there's like a moment where they're like giving each other dating advice. And one of them says to the other, like, just be yourself. And the response back is, that's terrible advice. Most people really don't like me. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of like,
Like, which
Finding that
else are you talking about too, you know?
right. Like, I don't know, people mean well when they say, be your authentic self or just be yourself. People will love you. Like,
Yeah.
that feels
Yeah.
maybe a little risky. I don't know that they will love all of it if they see it, just right in a big,
Mhm.
like, here's everything I am. Here's all of me. Like that
Like,
that can be overwhelming, I
okay, I'll
think.
give you a very bad example of behavior I do not condone. But in my 20s, I was really set on being authentically myself. I refused to let anyone tell me what to do. I refused to not do exactly what I wanted in the moment. And in that moment, I wanted to dry hump my friend at a park and I wanted to make out with her, even if there were families around. And I feel like that was inappropriate. Right? But I was so sick of being in a conservative bubble. I was so sick of people telling me what to do with my body. I was so sick of the limiting of like, why can't I kiss my friend? Why can't I show her affection? Why can't I be in public? And it was just like a 24-year-old brain that was like so convinced that authenticity needed to be what I want in the moment, regardless of who's around. And I just realized like, that's not it either. Like, that's not it. Like, that's
Yeah.
not it.
That's too far in the
It's
other
like too far
direction.
in the other direction for me.
This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the natural self being in creative tension with the aspirational self.
Mm,
That's exactly what I'm talking about because there is the point in the middle that's constantly shifting, by the way. We're constantly reassessing, constantly finding where that like little tension is between those two poles of like what it is to be the self. And that's what I think we mean by the authentic self. I think that's what I was getting at, that exact tension that you're talking about.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, if everyone can give me a pause, Discord put out a comment that I think is so relatable right now. And I actually have a theory about this. Discord said, does anyone have the experience of feeling more free to be unfiltered and unmasked and more authentic with strangers than with people you know? I feel like the people around me have a history and an idea of who I am in their heads. So I've always felt more comfortable as a theater kid with the idea of being able to give my all and be more authentic in front of strangers. Right? This is a phenomenon that I think actually this is such a specific throwback to my own like Discord. There was a time when I think that was such a safe space for people to be so authentically themselves that I deleted all the history on the Discord so we could start again because I think some of us overshared. I think some of us might have overshared. I think but it was such an amazing invisible username based, eventually our faces place where it was like, it was such a safe space to be ourselves. Nobody knew us, but then began to know us. And then it was like, and now we're back to being private. Because I feel that consequence sometimes that that's why I love the internet. At first, the internet was a place for me to be authentically myself. Nobody knew me. But now people know me. And now people stalk and they dox and they get to know you. And now it's like, okay, now we're serious again. Now we're back to masking and seriousness because now my life is on the line. I'm not masking for money, chat. I saw that comment. Masking, first of all, don't ever ask why an autistic person would mask for money under capitalism because what the fuck? Like, I feel like that's so weird. We have to. Everyone has to.
It really is a privilege.
It really is. It really is a privilege not to.
Honestly.
But let me tell you this: it's not about masking for money, but there's nothing wrong with paying your bills. It's about masking for ultimate safety because some of us want to retire. Some of us do want to get into our elderly years and be sufficient. And we don't know what this government's going to do for us, and probably nothing. So it kind of feels like there's a serious conversation that I don't know if we're having because we're also distracted with feeling good in the moment. I'm worried about 80-year-old Brittany. What is she going to do? And how is she going to build a brand and a business that functions within a world that has expectations of her that don't come natural to her? And it's not just about me. I'm just using myself as an example to make people feel like I'm not coming for them. But it's about us. It's about all of us. Any thoughts about anything?
To the strangers comment, 100%. I feel way more comfortable with strangers than people that I feel like for me, you're either in my life, like inner circle, I've known you probably for years, and we are already just locked in, or you're a complete stranger. So I'm comfortable with either or, but anything in between. If I've met you a couple times, if I'm like somewhat close to you, but not quite, then it gets really awkward because you've established a little bit of history there. And so there's expectations. And I've noticed that as an autistic person, having expectations there built from history, but not like a streamlined way to talk about it is what creates that really horrible tension. Because you
Mm.
just know in the back of your head, if we get to this really awkward, tense part of our relationship or friendship, do I trust this person to be able to talk it through with me and not take it personally? I don't know. So I just want to avoid it so that we don't have to deal with it. Um, I actually went through this the other day with one of my friends from college. We went to go rock climbing together, and I was telling her how I wanted to start that as a new hobby. And she was like, "Aren't you scared to go join a gym by yourself and start a new hobby and just be by yourself? And there's all these people there." And I'm like, "No, that's actually so freeing for me. Like the thought of being in a new environment, no one knows me, they have no like misconceptions of me or whatever. And I get to just meet people and, they only know what they see right now. And they don't have any expectations for me. Like I could suck at this new hobby and in a sense they could help teach me and I don't have to like come at it with ego, like pretend I know everything. It's just I get to almost be a newborn baby in this environment. And I was like, that is somewhat therapeutic for me. It sounds very freeing. And she was like, "Oh, that's so scary. I don't know anyone. And I look like I don't know anything about what I'm doing." And I'm like, "Yeah, but isn't that the freeing part?" And then she was just like, "No." And I think that's just such a big difference
Mm.
sometimes. I don't know if it's an autistic thing to almost find a sense of like freedom in being in such a new environment where you don't know anyone and no one knows you. But I feel like there has to be something in that, you know?
Well, it's a movie plot in so many movies, right? Small town, everybody knows you. Big city, nobody knows you. Get to start over, right? I love being invisible in public, but I'm also such a fucking talker, bro, that I end up knowing everybody at the local grocery store, and then everybody knows you. And then even at this grocery store, even in Croatia, people know us now, and they go, "Oh," and they know our orders, and I'm like, "No, we share too much. Now we can't go to the store and be invisible." And we gave up our yeah, that's like the price you pay for community. Is not being able to go to the store and be invisible, I guess. But yeah, it's like a beautiful, like weird conundrum where like we wanted to build community, we wanted people to know us, we wanted people to know, and then now it's like, oh, people know us now.
Mhm.
I feel
Yeah.
like it's the invisible expectation part that makes us scared to develop a relationship with people because we want the freedom to technically, let's say for you going to the grocery store, I'm sure if you knew for a fact you had the freedom to not talk to people and they won't be offended, it would be completely different.
Mm.
But because we've established like a relationship with the grocery people and they know our orders, now we have to now think of, does this mean that if I don't say hi to them this time, they're gonna think I'm mad at them? But I'm not
Mhm.
mad at them, but also I don't wanna talk, and then that starts to get, I think that's where we experience the conflict sometimes, is how we actually want to exist on some days. It could be inconsistent. We may not be social
Mm.
on some days. We may not even be verbal. So sometimes you could be social but nonverbal. So you might wanna be around people and listen to them talk, but you don't really want to interact, right? But I think a lot of the times when there's some sort of social relationship established, there's a lot of these invisible expectations that you now have to fulfill. And that part, I think, is what gets to a lot of us.
Definitely, 100%. I actually okay, just like a little tool I
You're just
used.
PDA, honestly. I'm like,
Yeah.
doom the expectations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I learned that if I just make enough eye contact and smile, it's enough for most people. And I'm like, okay, I don't have to have a real conversation, or like it's okay if I just like head nod. You do little, you do
You
little
acknowledge
yeah,
them,
I
but yeah.
acknowledge them, and that's usually enough for most people. But the anxiety in my body was insane when I was like, did I just fuck up my whole like grocery shopping experience? And then I was like, no, we can do this. We can navigate this. And the worst part is like, I really like people. So that's the worst part is like, I don't hate them. I love them. I just don't want to talk to you
Mhm.
right now. But like, it's not about you. It's about my spoons. And like, I don't know if I want to be perceived today. And like, yeah, like it's like the inner monologue in your head versus I have a brother who is literally extroverted and ready to socialize every second of every day. He's a golden retriever. He's literally Mr. Peanut Butter from BoJack. He is literally always ready to go. He's just consistently the same person every day. And I'm like, how? Versus
Cannot
I am
imagine.
not, could not be me.
My high levels of neuroticism meets my high levels of conscientiousness on the big five, and it's like, what do I do? What's the right way to even perform all the time? And yeah, I freak out sometimes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've literally had to tell a partner before during the workday, I'm like, I don't want small talk today. So when you come home from work, if you have nothing of value to say, I don't want to talk. Like we could be around each other, we could parallel play, but I don't want to have conversation. And to most people, they would be very offended by that. And they would think that, oh, you don't love me, you don't care about what I have to say. But it takes a very specific type of neurodivergent to know, I know exactly what you're saying, you're not verbal. So that's it. It doesn't have any emotional weight to it. Um, but it's just funny because when you say these requests out loud, it sounds so messed up. Like, even when you said, Brittany, I like you. I want to be friends with you, but I don't want to talk to you. You know,
Yeah.
just hearing that is so funny to me, or just hearing myself say, I love you, but if you don't have anything of substance to say, I don't want to hear anything from you. You know, it
Mhm.
sounds so messed up, but it's such a reasonable request, I feel like, if you do understand where it comes from, you know?
It's like my brain is already on overload, just taking in all the information
Mhm.
and all the everything. I don't have any more space for it. It's not personal. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think well, I think that's the dilemma is like it's kind of like when you have a limited amount of spoons every day, you do have to you have to be responsible with where you put them. And so listen, like I don't know about you guys, but I am paying attention to politics. I am paying attention to the economy. I am paying attention to life. And I do have goals and I do want to set those goals for other people. Like you need to build the life that makes sense for you, regardless of your situation. And I want you to figure out how to do that within the mechanism that makes sense for you. And so for me, what I do is I say, what am I willing to do that coincides with my values? But also, I'm not doing it right now because either I'm not putting forth the effort or I think it's too much, but it actually isn't, or I haven't really made a commitment to this like journey because I think that that's what stops people. Like, and there's a conversation to have about like survivability versus like comfort. I know chat's talking about it. I see you, chat, but when I say retirement, I do mean survivability. Like, I don't know about if you know the unaliving statistics of autistic people is like 3 times the number of allistic people. So like in a lot of that,
Wow. I
yeah,
did not know that
I
statistic.
have
That
it.
is
I have a
wow.
theory because autism is diagnosed in men more and men have a higher unaliving rate. That's a lot of men who haven't coped with the fact that their autism was playing a role in their inability to survive in a capitalistic world or something
Mhm.
along those lines. This is very anecdotal, very Brittany brained, but there's something there that tells me, okay, the world's not going to pay my bills. The world's not going to survive for me. The world's not going to survive for us as a community of like, look at what RFK Jr. is doing right now to the autistic community. Like, we have to think about the fact that the world still won't see us, especially if we don't present in a way that they deem accessible and they can feel compassionate towards. So then that like makes it even more of a game in a weird way. There's privilege for everybody and disadvantage for others. But what I mean to say is when I hear people say be your authentic self, I think they, without knowing, are asking you to be authentic at the expense of yourself. And I'm saying,
Yeah.
why are you asking me to do that? Why are you
Yes.
asking me to do that? Why do you think you are better? Because I think they think they're better than you. Like, I don't have to do that. I'm authentic. Are you authentic? Or are you just throwing away your life and your future for 20 minutes of feeling good because you think it's worth it in the present? When for me, I'm looking at longevity, girl. That's why we go to therapy and work on our mental health. It's why we work on our diets and we try to like live a longer life. It's why we try to like fix ourselves and be introspective. Is I want you to live a long, good life, not a short time party in my 20s and then where am I at 60? I want you to have a long and good life. And I want you to do that in a way that makes sense with your values. And so that's what scares me. I think when I do see people say, oh, it's like, it's so sad you did this thing to fit in, but like they're kind of either benefiting or they're not playing the same game or like they're going to be very screwed when they're 70. And I don't want to be screwed when I'm 70. And I don't know if people are thinking about retirement, but I'm not holding out for Social Security at this point. I'm not even sure my
Mm.
parents are getting it. You know what I mean? So I think I'm concerned that autistic people or neurodivergent people or alternative people might be digesting a message that sounds really good in our 20s, but makes no sense for our 70s without compromising and going back to where the boomers went, which was in the closet, in denial. Like, I do not want us to sacrifice our authenticity at home. And I do not want us to be afraid of the world. I want us to be functional within it without being ableist, which is very hard.
I think it really does go back to introspection and like having that real relationship with yourself.
And be right
So
back.
you can interact with the world from that in that way, you know? So when I think about, again, like the therapies that have helped me, the internal family systems for one was the biggest one. And what I love about that therapy is I feel like it taught me step by step, this is how to be introspective. This is how to have a relationship with yourself. And like really unburdening the different various parts of me allows me to like do what you're talking about and show up to the world in a way that's like, yeah, like I have more of a capacity to present the different, I don't know if you would even call them masks, but yeah, maybe masks or to mask maybe more wisely, to be more wise in the way that I mask and for who and when. I have more energy to do that. It's not just this big huge burden all the time where I feel like, oh, I have the burden to be authentic and the burden to mask and the like, you know, like having that like yes, like inner relationship with the self somehow. I don't even know the mechanics of it, but it's like if I have that relationship with myself, somehow all the pressure, it's like a pressure valve. It's all that pressure is just,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah. It's literally that double-edged sword. The pressure to be authentic and the pressure to mask and the pressure to tell everyone to fuck off. I'm going to do what I want.
Yes. It's like, God damn, PDA activated.
Literally. I feel just as much pressure when people tell me to be authentic as I do when people tell me to mask. I'm like, oh, both of you be quiet. Leave me alone. I'm going to do whatever I want, which I think is authentic. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If someone were to say that to me, just be yourself, I would ask them, what does that mean? Like, I would say, what parts of myself do you like? Because I would assume if I'm putting myself in their shoes, when they're telling me to be myself, that must mean that they see me as a likable person. And so if I'm a likable person, they would assume that if I was just myself around other people, they would like me too. And so I want to get to the root of that. What do you like about me? And then if they were to like talk about, oh, I like the way that you talk, your personality, that would give me a lot more to work off of than just telling me to be myself. I would be like, oh, okay, so they're telling me to just, you know, talk about the things that are important to me, be an active listener like I usually am. And if I'm presenting myself in that way and those characteristics, then, you know, it's less about people will always like me and more so about the right people will like me. That's how I interpret that statement of be yourself. It's more so about be this part of yourself that I've experienced. And because I like it, I think that with other people that are right for you, they will also like it. It's less about like, just be yourself and everyone's going to accept you and love you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I want to give an interesting example that I think will help us also, because I just had this realization like, oh, my partner doesn't like loud noises. And they married somebody who slams every door and kitchen cabinet she ever touches. My whole family does it. We're just like, boom, 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 boom. And I'm always dropping. I'm dropping my cell phone. I've dropped my cell phone so many times. How has it not broken? The case, girl. The case. I am a dropper. I just make the loudest noises. I stomp. I'm a stomper. And he's just like, Jesus. And I was like, boom, boom, boom. And I come in.
Taurus energy.
I am literally a destructive tornado in my own home.
A bull.
Oh, Taurus girl. Let's go. And yes, girl. I am that bull. And so I'm with somebody who isn't. So when I drop stuff, I go, and I look at him. And like, he doesn't care. He's not mad at me. I'm worried about, I want to be sensitive to his neurodivergency and I want to be sensitive to him. And that's why he has those soundproof Apple things. You know, he's got those, you know, he wears them in the house. Okay. I wear mine too sometimes, but he has the special ones. And that's the point is like, he's not mad at me and I'm not scared of him. I want to be considerate of him, but my authentic Taurus bull energy is so obnoxious. I know I know.
The
What is
loop
the
ones,
oh,
they're loop
nice.
ones.
I have
Yeah.
those
Loop?
too.
Yep.
Nice.
Mhm.
That's the part that
Noise
I love that. That's
Oh.
the point that I'm trying to make, that I think it's okay to be authentic, but even if we were in a group of autistic, neurodivergent, whatever people in a group, we would all probably trigger each other with all of our different like sensory issues and sounds and smells and like, you know what I mean?
True.
So I think I'm trying to be kind and compassionate, and I'm not trying to play some game that makes like non-autistic people love us or non-alternative people love us, or like play some game where conservative people who are bigoted love us. I'm just trying to say, hey, maybe like even if we were all together, we'd get annoyed with each other. Is that okay? Like, can we find ways to show up that is like more considerate of people in a sense? Because I don't know if we're I just find it to be so prevalent in my own life, and I'm just noticing it. And I'm just saying, like, it's not that much of a sacrifice to be like, tone it down, Brittany. Tone it the fuck down. And it actually
Mhm.
has a lot of fucking benefits when I do that. So I'm like, oh, damn, it's not that big a deal. But at home, I only have to tone it down like 1%. You know what I mean? That's like, that's doable too. Cause like, I don't live alone. I don't ever want to, I want to feel so safe in my own house, which I am, but I also do want to be considerate of the person that I live with, or even Indiana Jones, who rules this house.
Yeah.
You know, like my cat also has feelings, and I don't want to hurt her feelings either. So, you know, that's really where I'm coming from with this, which is like, where is the line between masking and authenticity and just realizing like, hey, your stimming is actually just fucking overstimulating me, and you keep doing it. I'm watching you doing it, and I'm getting a headache, and I need you to stop. But okay, if you need to do that, let's go into our own rooms, which my partner and I have done. I was like, oh, are we going to keep doing that for 20 minutes? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, okay, but I need to go to a different room. And like, instead of it being a negative, it's just like, I love you so much. I'll see you later tonight. And that's like the
Again,
freedom,
privilege enters the chat
because I have
you have the
multiple bedrooms.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
This
feels
is the
like it
first
circles
time.
back.
Yeah. So this is the first time I've had an office and a room I can hide in. And it's everything. I've never had this before. And it is everything. Sorry, go ahead, Genevieve.
I second that too, because my partner and I have separate spaces that we can go to when we need to, and it is just such a incredibly fortunate dynamic, and I am so grateful for it. But what you were saying a minute ago made me kind of just reflect one more time back to Harmony's original statement about authenticity being about balancing like your natural urges with your aspirations, right? And trying to find somewhat of a balance in there. And I think that by trying to be aware of your personal needs, but also be considerate to the other people that you share your space with is a perfect example of that, because your value is that you want to be considerate to them and you care about them and you don't want to do something that's going to make them uncomfortable, but you also need to be respectful to what your body is telling you it is needing or wanting to do, from more of like a primal instinct.
Mhm.
Yeah. I feel like this is almost veering away from masking and more so towards like what it means to be considerate of other people, because being considerate, I think, should
Mhm.
always be something we're doing, regardless of if we're authentic or not. I think just as social people, as human beings, we should always be considerate. And I think because of that, we should be shaping our lives around our capacity to be considerate. So, for example, I have a very low threshold of socializing. And for me to be considerate in a way that resonates with me, I would have to socialize a lot less than average people. Because if I socialize a lot more than I'm capable of, that means I'm not going to be as considerate, because
Mhm.
my fuse is going to be shorter. I'm going to be a lot more standoffish, a lot less nice, a lot less understanding. And I even talked about this the other day with my friend, how they're talking about, how understanding and compassionate I am. And then I told them I have to shape my life around that, because if I socialize too much, I won't be as understanding or compassionate. So I
You're
actually keep my
yeah, you're
socializing very
broccoli.
minimal so that I
Yeah.
have more capacity to
So you
empathize.
can be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
I could also be an asshole if you put me in the right situation or the wrong situations. I could
Definitely.
also be very scary and
Paying
standoffish.
for your sensory
Um,
needs is an act of love to other people in that way. Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely.
And I
Mhm.
think something you always have to consider is my considerations of others bringing me further away from my needs and my authenticity, or is it actually supplement
Mm.
to it? So, for example, the partner that you live with, when you do these little things and adjustments, it shouldn't take away from yourself. It should be easy. Like, oh, I could totally go stim in another room. That's not
Mhm.
going to take away from me.
Right.
But as soon as, let's say your partner says don't stim, period, I
Ooh.
don't think it's acceptable. That's a good indication of, oh, any sort of like adjustment I would have to make for you is not in alignment with me.
Yeah.
And
Like I don't want to mask at
Right.
question,
home.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, wait, I have a question.
But
Oh, go ahead, Jen.
no, sorry, no, go for it.
I'm curious about how you guys tie this into, because I think that Irene, you just made a great point that there is a difference between masking and consideration. I'm always considerate of my partner, but I never feel a need to mask ever.
Mhm.
And I think that is the difference, is like I don't have to, because like one, we respect each other's spaces. Like he could just move or I can move, or we just say out loud, like, I love you so much. Like I'm gonna go, in Croatia's crazy. There's doors everywhere here. They have a door usually between the kitchen and other rooms. So like I just shut myself off in the kitchen. I'm like, I'm going to the kitchen, door shut. I don't know what it is about Croatia, but I love it here. I love the doors. It allows you to just like be in one side of the house. Anyways, so when I think of consideration as an example I use is like I grew up in a culture where you didn't cuss in front of kids. So like if you were at Disneyland as an example or a park, you wouldn't throw around the F word. Like you would just don't say cuss words. Like don't do that in front of kids. But I know in some bubbles cussing in front of kids is really normal. And so it would be really weird not to do that. And so like I try to, when I'm in a different social bubble culturally, I try to adapt to the culture. Right? Is that masking or consideration?
That's
I think it's
consideration.
I think that's
consideration.
consideration.
Okay, I
Code switching.
I agree, right? It's like a form of code switching almost. But code switching also originated, I think, out of like a survival mechanism, right? Is like signaling to the in group
Yeah.
that you're like safe, right? Don't a lot of black communities talk about code switching into white, like
Yeah,
kind of, okay. So I
Right,
just want to make
especially
sure
in like
yeah.
professional ways
in
and things
professional
like
ways,
that.
especially, right? And then I think about that too, because professionalism is such a construct. I have a video about this coming out. I'm so excited. What is professionalism if it's all a construct we've created to signal? So then I think of masking as less of a construct and more going back to what Harmony said, maybe something that is actually coming from within that's more natural, like a stim. And so when we mask, we're masking our natural, but only because we know it isn't universally like signaling the proper thing, which is a form of consideration. There is like a consideration that goes into it versus a fear. I think most of us are taught out of fear to mask because of retaliation. But what if we just masked out of consideration? I think that's where I'm at in my life, where I'm like, I just want to mask out of a form of consideration for myself and others.
It's like my
Yeah, that
consciousness, my high conscientious level, like directly plays into my masking, if
Mm.
that makes sense. But maybe I have that wrong. Maybe that's like actual just consideration, and it's almost that like machinery going haywire a little bit, going a
I
little
think
too
the
far.
key difference is you feel like you have a choice. You feel like you have options and you feel like you could choose
Mhm.
what you want to do rather than it's a compulsive, if I don't do it this way, then I'm going to suffer a consequence of it. So you should have the freedom to say, okay, I'm going to mask this time because, let's say a work environment, I don't think I'll be hired if I don't mask and I need money. I need to pay my bills. You should also have the option to, let's say around a friend, if they're more anxious and you know that if you were to be, you know, stimming physically and be a little bit more bouncy, it would probably put them on edge because they're so in sync with you. And you should have the option to think to yourself, I'm going to mask my stims for them so they're not as anxious. And then you should also have the option to not mask if you don't want to not have to necessarily consider everyone else before yourself or to feel like not masking is going to lead to a negative consequence. You should also have that option. But I think the key is that as the person, you should feel the freedom to suss out any sort of situation and think to yourself, what do I want to do this time around in this situation that resonates with me and I feel good with, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. When I made the podcast originally about plastic surgery in relation to this, because I do think when people tell women to like love their authentic bodies and to not get plastic surgery to fit a mold, even though they've gotten plastic surgery and benefited from that. Okay. It's like maybe right message, wrong messenger, but also maybe that's not true. Like maybe that's not true in a way that I think is profoundly limiting on your short time on the planet. Like maybe there's a part of me that's like, you're only here for like 80 years, bro. If this rhinoplasty improves your life that much, like what's the disadvantage? I don't get it. You know what I mean? But then maybe that's me doing a data analysis. Like I'm put into a cat, but only if you want it. And I say this as somebody who looked into getting a nose job but like has decided not to get one, even though I'm pretty sure it could improve some part of my life. I don't think the ROI is not there. The return on investment isn't there. So like not to be such a debate, like not entrepreneur bro, but like I do think the ROI isn't there. But if the ROI is there, why are you mad at people for playing a game and winning? Like I don't get the idea. And then I have to think that a part of people telling people not to get plastic surgery in order to fit in, are you saying that because you can't afford it? Are you saying that because you can't get it and it won't fix? Are you saying it because you think 8 billion people on the planet are about to switch their bigotry overnight to fit you and accommodate you? Like we're dealing with a global planet of 8 billion people, all of which who have completely different and unique ideas about fitting in. And it feels like it feels a little bit like a lie when people are like, be your authentic self. Don't do this thing to like get an advantage, even though there's no moral implication here. There's nothing immoral about getting a nose job. So like, why are you so mad about it? And then that makes me think it's like something's there that I don't understand.
I think what it is they feel like unless everyone accepted themselves, they are not allowed to accept themselves. If everyone is meeting this high standard that you can only obtain through surgery, that means this person giving the advice can't obtain that sort of beauty. And they also feel like they don't have permission to think of themselves as beautiful. So they feel stuck. And so I think it comes from a place of, even though the advice is geared towards others, like don't get surgery, you should be accepted the way you are. Even though it's directed towards others, it's more so about themselves. I feel like it's almost like a self call out of don't get surgery because if you can't love yourself, I can't love myself. I can't think I'm pretty. And I don't want to get surgery, but I also don't want to feel ugly. It's one of those things. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of the times uh, women can be socialized to feel as if we can't just do our own thing and think that is acceptable and that could exist outside of a wider social dynamic. I feel like, I mean, honestly, men are like this too, but in different ways. But um, I just find that, I mean, you even see it. I see it all the time when I'm out. I see like Gen Z girls in their little groups and they're all wearing jeans and black shirts. And you see that on TikTok all the time. Like there's this herd mentality of we all have to do the same things and have the same philosophy. And if anyone differs or if I differ, that's like a threat to the system.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I think about when someone says, don't go get surgery. You're beautiful the way you are. Just be yourself. It's them almost convincing themselves, I could just be myself and it should be accepted. I can not get surgery and be beautiful, you know?
I have a theory because when I was little, I remember everyone had Uggs, like real Uggs, and my mom couldn't afford real Uggs. So I got Costco Uggs, and right away the popular,
Puff
I don't know,
or whatever it was called.
I don't remember, but it was from Costco. And I remember the popular girls who would get like $10,000 extensions came up to me and they're like, oh, Brittany, did you get the actual Uggs? And I was like, no. And they're like,
10,000?
girl, this girl would come to school with extensions all the way to the ground like a mermaid. I was like, how much was that? And she'd be like, I spend like $10,000 to get all my extensions done every so many months. I'm assuming she meant in sessions, like not one session. But I was like, and in my head,
But
'cause I was like,
extensions are stupid.
they are expensive.
Like,
They are.
really can be.
They are
Yeah.
very expensive. And I was like, I was like, how'd you get that hair? And then I realized like, oh, I'm not in this clique. Now listen, I think when you're in that situation, I had to decide, am I going to get the real Uggs to be in this girl's group? Obviously, the answer is no, because the only reason you want to be my friend is because I have Uggs. That's stupid. But I noticed that as I became more authentic and I formed friend groups, I would look around at my friend groups and be like, we all kind of look the same. And we're all like playing the authentic game. And so the joke is,
Exactly.
and I think the joke is like, I am unique and you are
Authenticity
unique.
is, as a cultural value, makes it feel inauthentic.
Yeah. But also like we are unique, but we're not that unique.
Mhm.
Like all of us are just a part of culture and part of society, and we're using even my language. I started to realize it finally clicked in my stupid brain, my beautiful brain. It finally clicked why people were like, Brittany's like a pseudo therapist. I was like, no, what are you hearing that I'm not hearing? And then I finally heard it where I was like, oh, I'm just using so much language that I never hear outside of certain girl bubbles. I realized boy bubbles don't
Mm.
watch therapy channels. Boy bubbles don't watch psychology channels. So when girls who like people and are interested in humans watch psychology channels to learn more about people, we pick up the language. And now when I'm in the boy bubble and they hear me, they're like, why are you talking like that? I was like what? They don't use the language. So they think I'm trying to be a fake therapist when I'm just using language I'm picking up because I'm in the environment.
Language that like works because it's more specific. But people hear like for instance when we were talking about energetic boundaries, I'm like, "Ooh, yes, I like that." Whereas you can totally see someone like hearing that and being like, "What?"
Yes,
What are you
yes.
talking about energetic boundaries,
Yeah.
but
And then like even language. My mom would say, I can always tell who Brittany was hanging out with because she comes home talking exactly like them. Who am I? I feel like I talk. You want to talk about, I don't know if this is an autistic trait, but my sentence structures are, if you notice I change accent or like I move in and out or I almost become a character, I remember sentence structures the way I remember quotes, and I talk in quotes, which a lot of my family members do. And so a lot of the time when I'm talking, I'm like remembering somebody else who said the same thing I want to say, and I say it, I quote them, but I'm trying to say the same thing. And it's almost just easier for me to remember how they said it and to repeat it.
I do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so like, who is the real
They say
Brittany?
it in the best way, and I just remember it because I'm like, "Yes, that gets to the point of what I've been trying to, like, come up with the right way to say it," and so then you just memorize that little line,
Yep.
and you repeat it over and over in different situations.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of this to say, and we can start wrapping up, girls, because I know we've been here for a bit. All of this to say, I do think there is a deconstruction. Oh, that word deconstruction. Reddit goes, I Googled myself on Reddit. Reddit goes, why does Brittany use the word deconstruction like she's some therapist? I was like, deconstruction is an activist word. And I was like, what are you talking? And then I was like arguing in my mind about like, how to use the word. Anyways, what all of this comes down to deconstruction and what do these words mean? Is it about being authentic? Is it about being considerate? Is it masking? Is it, what is it? And then is it, I said this on stream the other day. It is absolutely okay to want more knowing you can't have it. Like, I wish I could do this. I wish I could be this person. I wish I wasn't so chronically ill. I wish I wasn't so tired. It's okay to want to be more. Like, you are not less because you wish you were more. But, then we have to accept that too. We have to accept that, like, oh, this isn't like the most ideal situation, but it's, what does ideal really mean? It's about making the best you can. And I think everyone is doing that, autistic or not, alternative or not, neurodivergent. Like everybody's having a situation in their life that says, like, I have to do the best I can with what I have. It's just some people have more. You know what I'm saying? So, any last thoughts? Any closing thoughts? Any other topics we missed today that you guys want to go over? What are your thoughts?
I'd be down to like answer any sort of questions people have.
Chat. Now, speak. It will take like 30 seconds for
Chat
them to
did
catch
have
up.
some
so
good questions earlier.
yeah, if
so
you guys
that
have questions,
Chat.
ask them. Ask them. Ask them. It will take them about 30 seconds to catch up to stream. So
I think that authenticity is a value that I have as a person, like being authentic. And I'm also still like figuring out exactly what that means. And it's actually important to me to like break it apart, deconstruct it, and like figure out what that actually means because it feels very like it's so important to me that even feeling the pressure to be authentic is revolting to me.
same.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to
I
feel. That's
definitely
why I like the bubble
need
I
to
made
know.
at home. Sorry, Harmony, say that again. Say it again.
Oh, I said I think that's what I'm coming to understand as we're like talking about this.
No, same. I think that's why I say like I made a bubble at home that allowed me to be the most authentic version of myself, and I'm very grateful that I ran into in this lifetime a partner that allows me to be the most authentic version of myself. Because when I say like I feel like I'm alone even when he's here, that is like the greatest thing I think I could ever, like a greatest compliment I think I could ever give somebody. Because I love being alone with myself. I love my own
Yeah.
company, girl. And so like just feeling free enough to be in my own space, even though it's shared, it just feels so good. Especially as somebody who grew up with,
Mm.
9 siblings. It's like the difference between like anyways, so yeah, I think I'm with Harmony on this. Like I'm still trying to deconstruct what is authenticity, what is professionalism, what is showing up to a job and being serious, but also knowing like all these people are playing their own construct based games, that everyone's doing it, autistic or not. It's just like the way, I'll be real, the way it feels for me, sometimes it feels like torture. And I don't think holistic people are feeling that. I don't think non-autistic people, generally speaking, who are not also alternative or different or disabled, people who are just like the most basic, let's say like expectation of society, I don't know if they feel tortured at work, but I can feel tortured. Like somebody is torturing me right now. And
Mhm.
I just, the recovery from that is insane, which is why I always say like YouTube is a dream job, but it's still a job. And I
Mhm.
love it. I love this job. It's the best job. It's where I feel the least tortured. And I want to do it
I
forever.
think you're right that there's a difference between how much energy are you having to put into this? Is it torture or is it just like an inconvenience or like a not an ideal situation? Like I don't love masking at work and having to be professional, but I'm not being tortured by it. Like there's
Right.
definitely a spectrum I think where depending on where you fall on the neurodivergency scale is going to be impacted.
Yeah. Yeah. Any last thoughts on that before we do Q&A?
For me, it's hard for me to talk about masking without talking about like energetic boundaries for some reason, because I think the theme that we touch on again and again is like toiling with what we want versus what others want and their response to it. And I think regardless of if you're masking or not, it should always come from your own choice. I think that's what I feel more strongly about. Like, are you masking because you want to do it? And it does not matter how other people are responding to it. Even if they respond well to it, you're doing it for you, not to get them to respond well to you, you know? And I
Mhm.
think a theme that I have been exploring more and more when it comes to just like authenticity or masking or whatever is I feel like the journey's less about, changing yourself or healing yourself. Because, the topic of authenticity, like, do we even know what that end product is? I think it's more so about just how much of yourself are you embodying at this time is more so um, what we should be talking about. Because feeling really, really authentic isn't just this like end of the line ultimate achievement that you get on that healing process. It's just how much of yourself and your essence can you embody right now? And how much can you embody a week from now, a month from now, a year from now? And how much of yourself you embody right now is not less valuable or less authentic than 5 years from now, you know? And that's all that should matter. Talking about like circular processing with neurodivergence, like there's this weird thing about society that makes us follow like a very linear sort of growth process, thought process. And I think it kind of applies to this authenticity sort of topic. Like the idea of your most authentic self is like, oh, if I stick in this journey of therapy and self-love for 10 years, I think I'll be more authentic 10 years from now. And it's just like, no, you could be authentic now, you could embody yourself now, but that is gonna be different than 5 years ago and 10 years from now, and that's just what it means to be human, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and
There's
I
not
think a
this
big
like
part of
end goal that you're just gonna
Yeah.
like somehow reach, and then you're gonna what then? You're just gonna be
Yeah.
done?
It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, it's just a destination. That's not it.
Yeah.
yeah. And I think a really big part of that embodiment journey is not letting yourself become enmeshed with others. And I think that goes in with like having energetic boundaries. And I think that's something a lot of neurodivergents have to learn is that the key isn't to numb yourself and not be empathetic towards others, but it's also not to people please and get too enmeshed. Like, it's good to
Yeah.
be open, be connected, but have boundaries so that when people start to make you feel like you can't exist or I can't exist unless we're s- in line with each other completely, being able to have boundaries of you could exist how you're existing and I could do it my way and neither of us are wrong. And, again and again in situations, telling yourself, I'm not going to take this on. So if someone's, responding negatively to you stimming, you could ask yourself, do I want to take that on right now? Like that sort of conditioning that they're going through. They think it's shameful. Do I think it's shameful? I don't. But do I wanna take that on? Does it make me feel good? No. So maybe I don't wanna take it on and I'm just gonna let them be ashamed for me on their own, you know? Um, just like giving everyone space to have their own opinions and judgments. I think that's a really big one as an autistic person, allowing people to judge you without having to take it on. Like, that takes a whole other level of I see what you're thinking of me, but I don't resonate with it, and I'm not gonna take that on, but you're
Yeah.
free to judge me however you need to, you know?
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, any thoughts on that? Because I had a lot, but we'll be talking for another 2 hours.
Well, I think that setting boundaries is probably like my star thought from this conversation. I love that. That's our like automatically so helpful for me. So thank you for that
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, questions. If anyone's uncomfortable answering the questions, don't answer them, of course. For those of us who have been diagnosed autistic, how old were we when we were diagnosed? Since, women often aren't diagnosed or misdiagnosed or diagnosed later. So I just got diagnosed November, so 35. Anyone else comfortable sharing?
I was 8 last year. Mhm.
I think I was 26 or 27.
So
And I am not autistic, so I am the odd man, odd lady out in this group, so I have
so
no
really
diagnosis.
who's
Ironic.
yeah, there you go. Let's see. What about chronic illnesses and how they connect to these things? I know I have fibromyalgia and autism and yeah, there's like it's a lot, but I've figured out different ways to make it work for me. And how does this connect to exhaustion, they asked. I mean, gosh, you want to talk about masking and spoons. Sometimes masking helps me with my limited spoons get through work because I'm in so much pain. Or like is masking or is that masking? I guess is that it's like baking it. See, what if I wasn't autistic, what would because is it masking like I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like
It sounds like
sometimes,
you're just numbing yourself to your pain.
yes, girl, sometimes you got to get on stream and fucking do a stream while you're in chronic pain and not mention it once so
Yeah.
nobody feels bad about themselves. Because people don't want to hear that. Who wants to watch a streamer every day talk about how
Yeah,
much pain they're in? Like, fuck. you know? We're already learning about everything else bad in the
I can
world.
relate to that.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So you just kind of like show up. And look, it's not your burden to carry. You're not my mother. You're not my
Mhm.
doctor. You're not my partner. Like, you're not the person who's supposed to be doing emotional labor for me. You're not my family. You're my stream, and I love you. But you're not boundaries. You don't have to do my pain labor. It's sometimes nice to share. But yeah.
Requires that we get creative with our life if we want to like achieve our goals. That's all it means. It's that we have to be a little more creative.
Yes. Oh, I like that. I like that. Any thoughts on that?
I have
Um,
Ehlers-Danlos and IBS, the sexy
how'd you
chronic
get
illness.
diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos?
Well, I haven't gotten officially diagnosed with it, but I have
Oh,
a
okay.
list of all the
Yeah.
symptoms that I have, and so it's kind of one of those things. Interacting with the healthcare system is like really triggering for me, and
So
so I'm like,
bad.
do I actually want to get? Do I need mentally to get the official diagnosis? Maybe at some point, if the pain gets bad enough, I might. And I
Mhm.
find that I need some more accommodations, but at this point, I don't feel like I need that.
Mm.
At this point. But yeah, I've seen other people's journeys and how hard it is to get diagnosed with it and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm very like tentative. I have been officially diagnosed with IBS though, but
Mhm.
it's a little more straightforward.
Yeah.
Doctors
For
doctors are less
me,
scared of IBS than Ehlers-Danlos.
a lot more common. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
For me, I was diagnosed and I got surgery for endometriosis. That process took, oh my God. Honestly, trying to get a doctor to take me seriously took maybe 2 years of pursuing actively, multiple doctor's appointments with OBGYNs, and I've been told by so many doctors, like, "Period cramps are normal, you're so young, you can't have endo, blah, blah, blah." That's, like, a really rare condition, and then I had to have so many meltdowns and, like, just get back to trying again and again, and navigating insurance is, like, a whole other fucking thing
Mhm.
when it comes to the medical, you know, everything. But, I was finally able to have a doctor take me seriously. I was, like, crying in her office and everything, and she, referred me to a specialist for endo, and that specialist scheduled a surgery with me, and she found endo in me, cut them all out, so excision. Um, that's like the gold standard, excision, not ablation, because ablation is burning it off, which means the endo can come back and grow. So if you're struggling with that stuff, make sure that your doctor is doing excision, so they cut it out completely. So I got excision on all the endo inside of me. I've been symptom free from endo since then, but I've had other health conditions as well. So I've had a lot of jaw pain issues, that I finally got surgery for. That took also 3 years to get handled. And the jaw pain, reverberated into my back because it's all connected, and so I've had chronic back pain for the past 2 years or so. Um, but my jaw discs popped out, both of them. I don't know how it happened. I suspect it's from Ehlers-Danlos too, like hypermobility, because my joints pop out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
it pops out all the time for no reason. When I did jujitsu, the reason why I stopped is because my wrists would always pop out of place just because I put weight
Mhm.
on it, and my coach had to keep snapping my wrists back in during, classes, and I was like, "I can't do this
Mm.
anymore." Um, and I've tried to go to multiple specialists, a genealogist, what else? A rheumatologist to get diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos, and they're all just like, "You
They
know,
don't like
quite."
it. It scares them.
They're
Yeah.
like, yeah, they're like, "Your thumb doesn't touch your wrist
Right,
when
but
you're
there's
not very."
so many other presentations of Ehlers-Danlos. I have, like, literally been
You would
down
think.
all the rabbit holes, and I have,
Yeah.
like yes, exactly, that's I feel you
My
so much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
my presentation is like, at this point, I'm so stiff, like, my
Yes,
muscles have compensated. Yeah,
hypertonia, and it's the same pattern that often we see in autistic brains. Sorry, this is,
yeah.
like, one of my special
I
interests.
love
I'm like
it.
Me
I
too,
love it.
trust
like,
me.
cognition is embodied, right? So, like, our
Yeah,
weird bodies are, like, also relate to our weird brains, right? And
yeah,
so that is such a common pattern, right? Is like hypersensitivity. We have sensory issues, and then we compensate for being too sensitive with this rigidity. We do that in
yeah,
our brains, and that's the same thing I see in my body. Like
mhm,
my knees will bend backwards when I'm running, but I have like really stiff muscles, and it's like my muscles are compensating with
yeah,
rigidity for the over hypersensitivity. Like,
yeah,
anyway, yeah, it's my special interest. Cognition is embodied. Yeah. Anyway.
yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
so diagnosed, I had jaw issues, I have back issues, I have endo, but the Ehlers-Danlos is like a suspicion of mine, but I've tried to pursue a diagnosis to no avail, and I kind of just gave up there because there's no definitive like test that they could do to say you for sure have it. It's just like, how flexible are you? And I'm not flexible,
Not
so
exactly. It's not always. Sometimes hypertonia is actually a symptom of some Ehlers-Danlos. Yeah.
yeah.
And I've been that way since I was a baby. I came out really tense. Yeah.
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 But
Mhm.
most doctors I've noticed are just really good memorizers. They could
Mhm.
memorize what they read in books, but they don't know how to actually apply it to actual humans. And unfortunately, most doctors I've come across, and I've come across a lot, because health related anything is my special interest too. And most doctors are like, if you don't meet the very specific symptom criteria, then you're not struggling with health issues.
Very binary in the way that they think. They think
Yeah.
symptom and then curing the symptom, like A plus B equals C, instead of looking at it from a holistic, my whole
Yeah.
body is having all of these things and it's a system. And the way that my system is relating to itself is having all these little points of emergence
Yeah.
that are chronic pain. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's way too black and white for my brain. Yeah.
hmm hmm
Man, I wish I had a
Anyway.
joint.
I could go off on that for so
I want to take an edible right now.
I feel this is my favorite blunt rotation right here.
Maybe we should do that next time.
Like, oh, you,
Wait,
you
no,
talk-
That's
you
a good
can't.
idea.
In Croatia.
I follow the rules. I follow the rules.
We could be high
That's
for
good.
you.
I'm glad that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any last thoughts on this question?
No, I think it's just really common for chronic illness to go along with neurodivergence.
Yes, it is, girl. I'm telling you.
I have one last thought on that.
Tell me.
About cognition.
Wrote this
Yeah.
earlier. So when you brought up the statistics for suicide and how it's mostly men that commit suicide, it makes me think, okay, are male autistics usually less masked? And because of that, they're more alienated, and because of the loneliness, they commit suicide versus autistic women who mask more, which to some extent we could have assimilate, but also our health conditions is more so about chronic health rather than suicide. So I feel like, of course, this is a gross generalization, but autistic men struggle with health issues via suicide versus autistic women struggle with health issues via chronic health conditions and pain.
I wonder because the statistic of men commit suicide more than women do, even though women try more. Apparently, if you go more into it, according to some things I've seen, women don't complete because they think about their friends and family at a higher rate than men who feel like they don't have those connections. So the loneliness epidemic that's hitting men specifically is unique to their lack of community building that's integrated into their patriarchal systems versus under even patriarchy, women tend to build community. So like for us, like whether it's patriarchal or not, like we find a way to build community, generally speaking. So we have, every time I've ever self-harmed or tempted, I always had everyone in the back of my head every time. I just kept thinking, how do I end my life, but make it the easiest cleanup so nobody's traumatized, even the EMTs. I just couldn't imagine an EMT or somebody coming to my house or a fireman coming to my house and having to see my body. And I was like, how do I make it so it doesn't traumatize them? Versus I don't like to even have that thought process, right? Like I came up with all of these plans of exactly how to do it with the least amount of traumatization for everyone around me. And I just
your high empathy is interacting with that choice.
right.
Yeah.
And so it's like a
Yeah.
very interesting versus I think a lot of other people, like I've had men in my life who have killed themselves. It felt like no thought went into it, which is no judgment, of course. Like I don't judge people who take their lives, right? It's a very specific situation. And I don't think they were thinking about anyone. But why, that's kind of the spur of the moment of suicide. That's why it's so dangerous, because it can happen so fast. You're not thinking about it. And even in the times that I have attempted, it was compulsive. It was like, you know what I mean? But then, the back of your head is so loud sometimes. It's kind of crazy.
I feel like men are they're socialized to only think of themselves because that's tough and
Sure,
strong. And
sure.
it's like
Or not to
leadership
share,
qualities.
or not to tell
Yeah.
anybody.
And then
And it's
women are
so
The
Yeah.
patriarchy plays a role in this.
encouraged, right?
Yeah.
for
Right.
us
Yeah,
to
like
There.
selfishness
so
is seen
social.
as whereas
But
women are
also-
taught to have to think of everyone else except themselves.
Yes, and men are also in a patriarchal system. They're the ones that have to make the money, that have to do the work, that have to be the providers, that have to, so maybe they feel more pressure to mask more.
I mean, plot twist, women are doing that now too.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, everyone's a victim under the patriarchy, in my opinion. So I'm like,
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually,
Sure.
Discord said, I think men feel they are removing themselves as the burden. And I think a lot of men probably feel that way. Like they are the burden and
Yeah.
the world would be better
You're
without
not allowed
them.
to be burdened as a man.
Right. Right. Which is just devastating, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool question.
Yeah, women are taught to think we're the solution.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I actually think That's why they say behind every great
Quality
man
of
is a woman, right? Like I do have a theory now that things are coming out about all these great men that a lot of their wives were involved. I was like, I'm not surprised. 0% surprised. With peace and love, 0% surprised. Chad says,
Mhm.
how high on your values list does authenticity stand? For me, it is my highest value in combination with kindness. So I wonder what you think. Ooh, that's a great question. What do you guys think?
Ooh.
PDA
It's the only thing.
Wait,
definitely high.
wait. Harmony's mic went out, and then I heard Irene, but I didn't hear either of you clearly. So Harmony, then Irene.
Oh, I was gonna say as a PDAer, it's definitely high up there. But
Hmm.
I think because of a lot of the tensions that we've talked about today, my highest value is wisdom. But I feel like that's not disconnected from authenticity either.
Mm-mm-mm.
It's like I want to authenticity wisely.
Sure, sure,
That makes
sure. I love that. Irene.
sense.
I feel like it's your only compass, if anything. Um, isn't Albert Einstein's last study that he didn't get to complete or something about how authenticity is higher frequency than even love itself?
Ooh.
Um, like
Wow.
he was studying that when he died, and I think he passed that down to his daughter. Don't quote me on the exact details, but there's emotions or states of being that is matched to a frequency. And love was for the longest time perceived as the highest frequency, but I think Albert Einstein discovered that authenticity is even more powerful and potent. And I totally believe that. And that's why a lot of the times when you do come across an authentic person, regardless of, I mean, we come across this all the time, even with people who are annoying as hell, but they're authentic to themselves. And you're just like, I hate you so much, but you're also so interesting and so
Mm.
unique. And I just can't stop watching you. Um, and I feel like there's something to that, like, and I think there's, like, a natural draw for neurodivergent folks, like, we could always tell when someone's authentic because we almost gravitate towards them because 'cause we're like, "Ooh, this person almost, initiates me to their sort of frequency of authenticity," and I feel more free to be myself because oftentimes authentic people, even if they're not trying, they automatically give people space to be their authentic self because it's like, they understand if not everyone accepts me, I don't necessarily need to accept everyone else. And I don't know. Um, all of this to say,
Value authenticity and not value it in someone else. Yeah.
I feel like authenticity is probably for me what drives all my decisions. And then I also have other values like sincerity, compassion, things like that. But I think those things won't know how to be directed without authenticity.
Genevieve, any thoughts?
I it's it's interesting that you brought up love versus authenticity because that was the direction my brain was going initially. Is I feel like they're in my number 1 and 2 values primarily, and I was inclined to say that love would be my driving value and filter that I wanna see things through and that I try to see things through in my life, but without authenticity being right there behind it, it's it's difficult to love without authenticity, I think. So they do kind of need to work hand in hand or share kind of that top position.
It's so interesting how the different values feed into each other, and like emanate out
Yeah.
of each other, you know?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause
It's
I think
hard to have one
yeah,
without the other in a lot of cases. Yeah.
right. That's kinda why I think, like, of wisdom is my main value because it seems like, okay, well, authenticity, there's a way to do it that's toxic probably and a way to do it that's, like, affording and good and open.
Yeah.
Love also, that's a value I have too. There's a way that you can get into really, like, fucked up places because of valuing love, you
True.
know? There's
Mm.
also this way where it
Yeah.
just opens your whole world up, and so I'm like so anyway, that's just so interesting to see how they all kind
Wisdom
of
is a good
interpenetrate,
one to place in the top.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause
because then it gives you the ability to
yeah.
use the other values in a wise fashion.
Yeah, it's like but it's so and then you see yeah, you do see, like, how can you actually love someone if you're not coming from a genuine, authentic place? Anyway, that's very interesting to me to see how they all kind of
Yeah,
flow
it's a
in
Venn
to
diagram of
towards
values.
each other. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very air sign of you. Value wisdom.
Yeah.
The avatar over here. I I would say that I think curiosity is actually my greatest value for myself. But I would say that
Mm.
authenticity, so I always think of introspection, extrospection. So introspection, everything within myself, extrospection, everything outside of myself. So authenticity is like very important to me. It's like the key thing for me, my relationship with myself. It's like number one. Curiosity is probably number one, really, but you know what I mean. When it comes to being authentic with people, though, it's like I'm really at a stage in my life, girls, where I just don't give a fuck about people demanding authentic Brittany. I just feel like they feel entitled to a version of me that's none of their business.
Which ironically feels very authentic for me
Doesn't
to
it?
hear.
Doesn't it
Yeah.
though?
Yeah,
Because
yep.
the fake authentic, that's what I learned. I feel like the fake in a different version of YouTuber, there's a type of YouTuber that really says they're being so authentic and so themselves and so that, but I know behind the scenes they're not. And so I'm
Mm.
like, oh, I would rather just say,
Out
yeah,
all the authentic signals
I
of
would
performing.
a lot of,
Yeah.
and I just would rather say, I'm not giving you everything, girl, but I'm giving you enough. And it's not, I'm not lying to you. That's the best I can do. I'm not lying to you. If that's not authentic enough, I don't know why you think like I should give you more than I would give anyone else. You know what I mean? I just think there's like a YouTube parasociality that was created thinking everyone was going to be themselves on the internet. And that's just so rare to find. And that's okay. I think that's valuable. I think it's,
Yeah.
I think that's okay. But again, I'm thinking of very specific boy bubbles where they just do this whole brand of being totally authentic and everything's on the internet. And I don't, but they're behind the scenes, very different. And I just don't want to be like that. I don't want to be a person who gives the impression to my audience that like you're getting all of me when it's like, first of all, inappropriate. And two, it's not true. I have a whole life off the internet, right? I mean, I don't even share my family's names. I give them all nicknames. I don't even share my partner's name. I
Yeah.
give them nicknames. I don't even describe what my partner looks like. Like, I won't even tell them like their sign because I'm like too personal. You know what I mean? So I feel like that should be enough to say that you can have authenticity without you needing to feel like you get all of me. But that's the catch-22 of authenticity is it sounds like the implication is then you have to be 100% like not private. I think Irene, you kept using the word private.
Like an open book all the time.
Yeah, like I don't want to be an open book. I want to be private, like appropriately. I think, that's the point. It's like
Yeah.
appropriately private, but also like, I'm not going to lie to my audience. I don't have to lie, but I maybe don't
That's, I
overshare.
think, what makes it still authentic, right?
Yeah.
Is you're not pretending to share everything. You're being very clear that you do have boundaries.
Yeah, but when it comes to me, when I'm alone and meditating, I have to be authentic with myself because then I face my demons, I face my faults, I deconstruct, I grow, I earn that wisdom hopefully I'll get. So yeah, I think authenticity is definitely so personal, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, any last thoughts on authenticity? We all love it so much. Any last thoughts though?
I do. This has been such honestly, I think it's been, like, slightly life-changing for me,
Oof,
actually.
I love that.
Yeah, like, that energetic boundaries thing is like, ooh, I just wanna think about that a lot. So, like, thank you
Actually,
for that.
Irene, we haven't gotten to it yet, but I know it's coming up. Somebody asked, can you explain what that is?
Oh, let me get into my brain
Okay.
really quick. The seed is so different from my videos because when I'm filming, I get time to just like say what I need to say, and then if it doesn't really translate, I get to reiterate it. But
Right. Yeah, being live is different. Is very different.
okay, let's do a visualization example because I feel like a lot of us are sensory people. So when I think of energetic boundaries, I think of you being surrounded by your own energy. Like you could even think of your favorite color. So when I imagine my energy, I think of periwinkle specifically. And so I imagine like a aura of periwinkle around me. And whenever I'm interacting with people, even if I'm just stepping out my apartment and going on a walk, whenever I pass by people, even if we're not interacting, I see them, surrounded by their own energy. And in certain moments where if people look at me and they say hi, even though we're not directly coming together and having a conversation, I see it as them extending, let's say, their green aura towards me. And I get to choose whether or not I want it to come into my own energy and like take it in, or if I want it to just like bounce back towards them. And so when I talk about energetic boundaries, it's like any time, even if it's a conversation or it's an invisible expectation or whatever, anytime you're interacting with someone, if you feel like a violation towards yourself in any sort of capacity, that's a good indication of there's a meshment happening here and I don't feel good with it. And I think it's like a skill set to know how to tune into it every single time to be like, why do I feel like something's knocking on my door and I don't want visitors right now? So in an interaction, for example, you could say, "Oh my God, I joined a new gym and I'm so excited because I don't know anything and I get to learn a bunch of stuff." And if someone says, "Oh, but aren't you scared? Isn't that so scary that you don't know anyone? Isn't it scary that you don't know anything and you look like you're a beginner and all that kind of stuff? Aren't you scared people are going to think you're stupid?" That's a moment where I'm like, "Ooh, I feel a lot of that her own energy coming
Mm.
being asked to enmesh into mine, and I don't want that right now." And I almost imagine like it doesn't feel good having that come to the surface knocking at my door, but I'm gonna, purposefully not take it on and be like, "Oh,
Put a boundary.
yeah, like, "Oh, I feel bad for you that you feel this scared of starting a hobby. I think it'll be great for you to, be able to open up to people and have them teach you things and not have to know everything all the time." Turn it around in a sense. And I think that's the beauty of energetic boundaries is in all these moments where you could feel very violated, it turns into moments where you could almost witness the other person and turn it around in an empathetic way of like, I see you and I see your struggle. You try to put it on me, but I'm not taking it. And I'm just going to be nice and
Like,
compassionate towards you, you know?
I'm not accepting your mental model of me and then feeling the pressure
Yes,
to
yes,
become that person. Yeah.
I imagine it.
exactly.
I first of all, I fucking love this, but I kind of imagine it like they're shooting things at me. I'm like, nope, that's not.
Yeah.
Nope, no, and it's like,
I'm imagining like a mirror, like I'm like
Yes.
deflecting it back.
yeah. This is not
You are
my.
interacting with yourself, not with me. Thank you very much.
Did
Right,
you guys
right.
know that there's new research that indicates that sperms don't fight it out for the egg? The egg chooses the sperm.
Shut
Yes,
up, girl.
I love that because it affirms
I
my
saw that.
being the ones that are
Yeah,
actually
it has to like accept the one, like, and it
Yes,
will
and
reject others.
yeah, the egg will actively like kill off all the other sperms once it chose that one sperm it wanted. So it's
Whoa.
kind of like that. Imagine people's energies are like sperm trying to, get into
Yeah.
your field, and you're just
Like,
like, nope.
no, ma'am. I just imagine a gif of like closing the door or something. I'm like, no, this is not my business. This has nothing to do with me.
Literally.
I often will say to people, I'm like, this feels like this has nothing to do with me.
Yeah,
I
literally.
just, I feel like I'm getting dragged into this.
Yes.
No,
That's the
thank you.
freeing part when you start to actually see things for what they are and you're like, "Oh, this isn't about me. I know you're talking about me and what I'm
Yeah.
doing, but this is not about me."
Yeah. Actually, I think it's an amazing skill to have if you're going to be a public figure or a content creator. Is like
Or
without
neurodivergent.
Really,
yeah, or
really good.
neurodivergent. Without, of course, that's why you have to have trusted people in your life who will hold you accountable because you can't trust the internet to do it because the internet doesn't know you like that. But sometimes the internet can be right about what they're observing, but you got to have someone trusted you go to be like, is the internet right about me? Because you also don't want to be blinded to your own
Right.
self. But like, yeah, when I meet those, like, I felt like that's why I think I was so attracted to like a BDSM as a concept because it was so energy based. It was all about like what energies, like just like what does it mean to even interact with a person? Like, why am I doing absolutely nothing with this human? I'm just looking at them and I feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm feeling so like like a total. I don't even know this person. I don't even know this person's real name. I only know their club name, and that doesn't tell me much. You know what I mean? But like I'm feeling so connected, and a big part of it is I think we really are like these energetic beings. I think we are these very unique biological creatures that evolved over all of these millions of years to come out to be us, to be chosen by the egg herself. Okay? Like, that's like pretty special. That's pretty cool, And here we are.
reminds me of like resonance, like there's
Mm.
certain like your vibe, not to use too woo-woo of language, but like you're at a like you're when your energy is complementary with another energy, it's like a harmony.
Yeah.
If I say so myself, there's like a harmony that's beautiful, and you want to like ride that resonance,
Yeah.
as opposed to discord, when you come into contact with some people whose, resonance does not vibe with yours. The
Yeah.
energy is just like, ugh. It makes,
Definitely.
like, you
And
feel
it
it
might
in
not
your
even
body.
feel personal. Like it might even feel like,
Yeah, it's
you know
not
what?
personal at all.
Yeah, like it's like,
It's like and an F sharp, like, just
Yeah.
don't sound good together.
it's just
Nothing
not.
wrong with either one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I meet a lot of good people whose energy and mine, I'm like, nah. And like, nothing personal, but like, I can't figure it out. But like, it
Yeah.
feels weird. It's like, how do you reject somebody
Yeah.
without rejecting them? It's like, it's not
Yeah.
about, it's just like, it's not meant to be. I can tell.
It's not
That's
you,
where
it's
the
me.
boundary comes in. It's like, it's okay if they don't get it,
Yeah,
I
exactly. Going back to what Irene said, like
Mhm.
ultimately, yeah,
Mhm.
open with boundaries, I suppose. Right?
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
okay, one last question, and unless there's another one I see, we can start wrapping up. But this one was really good. It says, when do you feel tortured at work? When people don't understand you or say mean things? So I said this earlier, but I actually think you guys will relate to this. I actually think it depends on the situation, but the one that actually gets to me the most now is like executive dysfunction. It feels like I'm pulling my own teeth trying to do the most like basic tasks that I have to get done to create and do my job. And I know, again, like nobody likes hearing anybody complain about their jobs unless they can relate to their jobs directly. Sometimes it's like weird to watch a YouTuber complain. I'm not complaining about my job. I'm pointing out the real reality that my brain will literally malfunction and decide it cannot even simply write an email for at least 48
Gotta get
hours.
Adderall.
Like, give me an Adderall, girl. Give it to me. Like, I'm waiting. I'm trying to figure out how to get some. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to get. I am trying to get some. Let me tell you,
If I could just teleport it to you, I would.
girl. I'm telling you, there's my brain just goes, and we're down for business. I was like, down for business. We have so much to do today. I had so much planned today.
You know, there's actual research now that shows that for people with ADHD medication actually allows your brain to develop more and have more
great.
neuroplasticity. So there's actually big benefits with being medicated correctly for the ADHD. And if you're not medicated, your brain actually functions at a even less capacity than
I believe it.
non-ADHD people.
I believe it. Well, Croatia hopefully gonna hook me up soon, girl. We're in the works. We're trying to make it work. We're trying to see what the options are here. But
Yes.
yeah, like I have these experiences and like work can feel that way. I think when I worked in public, like a grocery store or other places, I think it was worse because of customer service or something else. Actually, when I worked at a grocery store, our freezer used to be a safe space for all of us to go and cry in there when it was too stressful.
Oh my god.
And like this wasn't just me. This was everybody would be like, I'm going to the freezer. I'm going to the freezer for 10 minutes. And there was no camera in there. That's why we'd go in there. Is that why you would go in there? Did you have a freezer? Irene, I see
When
you.
I was a waitress, every time we needed to cry, we would go into the freezer.
Oh.
Mm. Yep.
Plus, your head gets so hot when you cry. At least mine does. So it feels nice to be in the cold.
Yeah.
That feels, like a refreshing environment to be crying
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
also.
it was a vibe. But like that's what I'm saying. Just to be able to say that, be like, I'm gonna go cry 5 minutes in the freezer, bros. And everybody knows what that means. And it just like, but like the corporate, the bosses can't know what that means. Like they can't know what that means, but we all know what it means. And like that's kind of the point. Like when you work
Yeah,
in grocery
yeah.
stores, it's amazing how much the bosses have no idea how things get done. Like they have no idea. But we're making it work. We find ways to make it work. Isn't that funny? Like society really does like find ways to all kind of make it work, but all of us are trying our best to kind of mold things to be, I don't know, like just workable. And we can't talk about the system changing because the system doesn't want to hear it, but we still do it anyways under the system's like, I don't know, they're not like paying attention or something. And we do get our work done. That like when that kitchen was run by us and the corporate didn't get in the way, we ran that kitchen. We were doing so good. The moment the guys who weren't in the kitchen tried to do stuff with us, it just got horrible. I hated coming to work. I was like, you're ruining the vibe. We've got it. We're doing the best numbers we've ever done. But because we were doing better, they were like, we need to come in and give you advice. I was like, go away.
That's torture for me. It's
That's
like,
the
let it
torture.
why?
Like
We
leave
are
me
doing
alone.
just fine, and we figured it out, and it works for us. And you're gonna come in here and put your claws on it and just make me miserable to
Exactly.
exist.
That's
Eh.
what I
Yeah.
mean when I say like sometimes it's torture. It's like, dude, we finally found a system that worked for everybody. I finally, because I was, even in my position where they wanted to like give me a promotion, a 25 cents promotion. Like, guys, don't even get me started. I was excited to come to my minimum wage job, my $10 an hour job, as long as we could run the kitchen the way we wanted to and get it done, because I knew we were playing to everybody's strengths. But the moment corporate came in, and I'm just like, bro, you do not work this chicken
And honestly,
or the kitchen.
this is where masking comes into this too, right? Because
Sorry, I said chicken.
yeah, okay.
Harmony, go.
Well, masking comes into that too, right? Because it's like, when I'm free to do something in a way that makes sense to my brain and express myself in that way, then I can be productive and perform and like do all these great things and feel happy about it. But then these like really restrictive rules come in and it forces me to like contort my body while I'm doing it. And then I can't perform anymore. I can't do the
Yeah.
thing. Like, I was doing the thing, and I can do so much if I'm
Yep.
allowed to do it in a way that makes sense to my brain body. But, like,
Yes.
for some reason, not acceptable or allowed, and then I can't perform, and then no one's happy.
Yeah.
Nobody gets it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Do you
That is the
know?
torture.
No, that's why I recommend being a nanny for people, because like being a nanny was great. I worked with children. They're not adults. They don't bother me. Kids are funny. They make sense why they're crying. They're overstimulated. They need a diaper change. I understand that. And then they can nap. And I always negotiated with my families, like, can I use my laptop and edit YouTube videos while your babies are asleep? They're like, as long as everything's done, we don't care. And that's what I would do. I would work YouTube and nanny, and it was a perfect flow. And then one day, a homophobic auntie came to visit, and she was like, putting on anti-gay cartoons, and I was like, we don't watch those cartoons in this house because like we're kind of progressive. And she was like, yeah, but I'm visiting. And I was like, so I told the parents, and they're like, yeah, we don't really let our kids watch that stuff. And she goes, did the nanny tell on me? And I was like, I did. But also, you know what
Yes.
the worst part was? Is she was mad I was on my computer when the babies were asleep. And she goes, why are you on your computer? I was like, this is the situation that's allowed. Everything is done. I always clean everything in the house when the babies go down for a nap. I do all the chores first, and then I sit down and everything's done. And she didn't like that. And I was like, why are you ruining my favorite job? Why are you doing this to me? I picked the best job. But that's I think that's what happens. I think people don't like it when your job looks easy and they want to know
Yeah.
you're always working. That's so American. Oh,
Like, they make you stand up all the time or something, as like cash register person. Yeah.
no, Harmony, Bubble Pop. In Croatia, everybody sits.
Nice.
Nobody stands.
So anti-American.
Everybody has a chair. I'm like, this is great. Like, everybody's chilling. Everybody literally sits
Nice.
down.
I love that. Yeah.
And look,
Why
everybody's
not?
working.
Damn.
It's like, what the heck is our problem? America literally makes life miserable for people while promising the best thing ever. We could have the best thing ever if you would chill. There's no chill, bro. And that's so hard on autistic brains, our neurodivergent brains. Like, you are not giving us any
It doesn't
chill.
make sense. It like doesn't make sense, and that's the hardest part when systems don't make sense to me, and I have
Exactly.
to interact.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, it makes
I
me
would
nauseous
agree.
thinking about it. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I would agree when the rules don't make sense and the process doesn't make sense, when like your outcome that you could achieve is just different than what they expect. And then you're kind of left with, well, what matters? The product, like what I'm able to accomplish for you, or how I'm doing it, because you can't have both. Like, I either do things your way and I do it crappily or not as well, or I do it in my way and I do it probably better than everyone else. Like, I think about, okay, I thought
Yeah.
about multiple things when we were talking about this. I remember one time in high school, I was like slumped over because let's say I have Ehlers-Danlos. I can't sit up straight. I was slumped over during my chemistry class, and my teacher was like, Irene, sit up straight. You're not paying attention. And in my mind, I was like, what? How does
No,
he know I'm not paying attention? And he
when
was
you're sitting
like,
up straight, all you're thinking about is how much your back hurts. So
yeah,
then
and
you're
he
not
was just like, students who pay attention sit up straight, and students who don't pay attention slump over like you, so sit up straight. And I literally just got up and I walked out of the classroom, and that was very, very PDA of me. But also, like, when I was a barista, I would be the one that was the most efficient, so I could crank out the most drinks, take on the most orders. But at the same time, like, I wasn't necessarily the most, warm towards customers, especially during a rush. And, one time I pumped out all the drinks and I took care of it, and then this one rude woman came up to me and was, like, yelling at me for something that she made a mistake on, and then I remember my boss was like, "Irene, you have to be nice and accommodating," and things like that, and I'm just like, "Do you want me to pump these drinks out or not?" Like, I can't talk to every customer and spend so much time on them and pump through all these drinks during a rush and do to-go orders and in-person orders and all that kind of stuff. Like, you have to give and take a little bit. But I think that's the thing is our systems, both school and career, does not work with multiple neurotypes. You have to not only do things that they ask you to do, but you have to do it in a way that they need you to do it. Like, it's just so bizarre. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, okay, do you guys have this work experience where when I started working and I worked right out of high school, I always worked before high school, like washing cars and stuff, but I got a job out of high school, I got multiple jobs, and I went over and beyond because I'm working. So I was like, I'm going to do the most I can. I'm going to get everything done as quick as possible. I could do like, 20 hours in one shift if I really put my heart into it. And some days I would do that and be like, okay, I did it. I'm done. And they'd be like, oh, well, now you can do more. And then I realized like, oh, over time, they would expect me to be at that level every day.
Yeah.
And they'd expect me to do it with no pay compensation, of course. And then like worse than that, I learned, and I still don't believe it. I need you to know that I still don't believe it, but it's true. You need to make your 6 hours of work look like 8 hours, even if it makes you think you're being lazy. Make them think you're busy, like busy work. I never believed it, but I just shared this quote in chat where if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. I already cleaned everything. They're like, yeah, but you have to look like you're doing something.
Oh my god.
And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, but I already did it because I'm like, I did it. Like, and they're like, but now you have to look like, and so they're like, make something up. And I'm like, okay. And
You're basically like Azula.
yeah.
You
Oh,
set the standard super high, so if you're not perfect, then they think you're slacking.
There you go.
Whereas, let's say Tylee and May, they're just like very chill and relaxed. So when they do get into fight mode, you're like, oh shit, they're so on top of it. But technically, Azula puts in more work, but she has less of
Yeah,
a give
exactly.
on like how much she could slack off and
No,
things like that.
I've met people who are like, I always underperform. And I was like, why? And they're like, because if I underperform, when I perform at even my normal, they're like, whoa. And I'm like, uh-huh. And then like, I underperform. And I'm like, that's like, this is the games we have to play because companies are playing with us. And like, that's the irony of like jobs is like, don't even tell me you're not playing with me, bro. Autistic or not autistic, like that's how white people feel so burnt out. That's why Gen Z quits a job every new year and gets a new one with a better raise because you're trying to keep them at a $10,000 difference. Like I can't believe it. Like it's so different watching my brothers go through the workforce than ever when I did. Like it's so different, right? As millennials, I was told like keep a job at least a year to 3 years to have a good resume.
Oh my god, yeah.
Gaps
So
in that
different.
resume.
Yeah, no gaps in that resume. It's so funny how life has changed. But yeah, I think that part of the script probably I don't believe it. Like I can't process it. But yeah, that's why I hate that narrative like nobody wants to work. Well, nobody wants to come to a job where they feel like it's inefficient and nobody understands why isn't anything getting done like in a way that makes sense. I really feel like in my minimum wage years, people loved those jobs as long as they felt appreciated. They were fed and they felt like it was a good team to come to work to. We didn't mind getting minimum wage jobs as long as it like paid our bills, of course. The economy was different. But it was the atmosphere. Like nobody wants to go to work where they feel abused. Right? Like it just feels bad for everybody involved, But I think it can feel worse for even a regular ass job to feel like torture to an autistic brain sometimes because the standard is just different. Everything is so different. The way you interact is so different. That's why I work for myself ultimately because I'd rather work for myself. I joke for free because who knows if I'm getting paid today, but I'd rather do that and chase money than show up at a job where I'm guaranteed money because they have to pay me legally, feeling drained and just a mess. Like I'd rather just do this. And I know this in itself is hard for other people. All my siblings could never, they're like, I don't even know how you do it. I'd be so terrified to wake up every day and know I'm not getting a guaranteed paycheck. Like, how do you do it? And I was like, I just do. I just wake up and I say, how are we going to make money today? And then I hope I make money. But like, yeah, my siblings couldn't do this job. I mean, you know what I mean?
Mr. Krabs over here.
Money, 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 money. SpongeBob.
Oh
No,
my god.
seriously. It can fit. You know what, girl? He's the patron saint of dollar bills. You know what I mean? Like I try to keep him in mind. No, but it feels like I just wake up and I go, let's see if I make any money today. And sometimes I work 10 hours and sometimes it feels like I didn't make enough, but it's better for me than going into the office. And I think that's the point. Is like it's not perfect, but it's better. And I think you should go for better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got to make the best choice. Like weigh your options and choose the one that's going to be the least torturous
Yeah.
for you.
Yep.
Ideally,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like torture, but
Have you
you
ever
want to
edited a
minimize
video
that.
for 15 hours? Because I have.
That's torture.
It's
Yeah,
by
yeah,
the 20th
for
hour
sure.
of editing a video, you're like, I'm done. I'm gonna destroy
No.
everything. I'm
You're
done.
just slumped over
You're
like a
but your
shrimp.
whole body is a mess. Like I can't even tell you. And then you pay for it for the next 3 days. And I know nobody wants to hear that editing is hard, but you sit in an office all day, so don't complain to me either. It sucks. We all know it
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
It's just like so funny. It's like we're
I mean,
what are
try
you gonna do?
listening to yourself talk for 15
Oh
hours.
my god, I'm so over myself. I'm so over her. I don't want to hear my own voice. I start to hear my voice and I think I have an annoying voice. I don't want to listen to me. After 20 hours, yeah, it's a lot.
I think to put it into perspective, like I probably work or I know for a fact I work objectively longer hours working for myself than I did before. But I also am nowhere near burning out because of it. Because I actually like what I'm doing and I make the system of like my work hours work for me. So I get to do things in a way that makes sense to me. I get to do it when it makes sense. I get to talk about things that make sense. Everything makes sense for me. Whereas before, I can only manage being a part-time worker, like being a waitress, being a behavioral technician, being a barista. I would only be able to manage half being a part-time worker. And then literally, I was so burnt out even before the burnout. Like, I would come home from work and sleep for like 4 hours, wake up at 8,
Mhm.
and then be like, "Oh, I could fall back asleep for the next day." And it felt like I was just soulless. Like, I had no sense of purpose. I was so depressed. Like, I had no social life that was fulfilling. My work life wasn't fulfilling either, and I was just tired all the time, and it just felt like I was like a body, and there was no like I wouldn't be able to wake up and be like, "I'm excited for today," or "I look forward to this thing." Whereas now I could wake up and be like, "Oh, I really wanna talk about this thing I've been thinking about for a while." And when I edit even, I'm excited to edit because 'cause I'm like, "Ooh, I can't wait to get this out for people to, listen to and watch." And I don't know, I've been content creating for 3, 4 years now, and I could just I don't see a burnout point, whereas before, a year and a half in, I'm like, "I'm gonna burn out so bad to a point where in a few months, I'm gonna quit, and I'm not gonna be able to shower or eat for a week or so, um, and it's gonna be bad," you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think this is the first, now that I've taken it seriously, because I dedicated myself to it 5 years ago and now I'm doing it full time. And once I made that decision and I thought, okay, this is what we're doing, even if the internet adapts, we're doing internet. Whatever the internet's doing, we're doing it. Okay. Now that I've made this decision, I can't see myself burning out where I quit, never go back. But I knew when I was in other jobs, like I was like, oh, this is going to end. And it did. The grocery store completely burnt out, quit, went to Hawaii for 2 weeks with a partner, came back with a job as a nanny, a babysitter actually, and then built myself up to a nanny position where I was making like pretty good money, nannying one kid and like pretty professional. And then I burnt so hard out of that. I burnt so hard out of that I basically didn't do anything for like 3 months except YouTube part-time, Patreon, making $1,500 a month. And then I finally was like, okay, I'm doing YouTube full-time. Let's go. And then boom, it worked, but it was a lot. Like I burnt out oh, and by the way, that was part of my autism assessment. They made me write down my work history and a pattern and I was like, "Oh, big burnout." Big burnout. Oh, every 2 years, big burnout, life-changing,
Yes.
moving states, moving
2 years
jobs,
for me
moving
too. Mhm.
bro.
Yep.
2 years, my
Every 2
limit.
years.
Yep. Every 2 years, literally. Yep.
YouTube is the only job I've done for more than 2 years and not crashed. Once I
Same.
dedicated myself to it, which is different. when I was trying to do part-time YouTube and other work, I'd burn out of YouTube and be like, I'm quitting YouTube, guys. I'm leaving YouTube. And then I'd come back and I'm like, something's here. I just don't know what it is yet.
Mm.
And then finally it happened. And I was like, oh, I know what I'm doing here. It just took me a
Yep.
second. Yeah.
Any
You
job
need to
I
leave the other
go
stuff.
agency over it. That's the job that I can stay in.
Yeah. Yeah. Agency's important. My dad runs a business and he always said, Betsy, you can't work for other people. I just know it. So what are you going to do? And I said, don't put that on me. Don't put that burden on me. I could work for people. He goes, oh, please. He's right. I'm going to do it my way. Thank you. But I appreciate you. You know, he's right. And my
Don't
dad's
tell
the
me
same
who I
way.
am.
Yeah. Don't tell me who I am, but he knew. He was right. You know, what are you going to do? Any last thoughts, ladies? Any last observations?
Just what a
Did we
great
talk about fashion at all?
It was great. Oh yeah, fashion. No, we talked about plastic surgery, which is kind of fashion.
We talked about it for like 2 seconds.
Hey, you know what? It's all part of the game, though. Like, talk about showing up. Actually, I don't want to call you
We
out,
should
but
just do that next time. I
We
say we
should.
continue the
oh,
conversation.
we could talk about fashion
Yes, a part
specifically,
2.
specifically fashion. But yeah, I
This
think
was so
it was
good.
good.
Like
It
I
was
feel
good.
like that edified feeling in my heart, you know?
Yeah,
Aw,
Yeah.
that's good.
it was really lovely. I'm so glad we talked. I'm going to change this title.
Love it.
I'm going to change it.
Wait, what's all of your guys' zodiac signs? I know Brittany's a Taurus, but and you're
I'm a
you're
Gemini.
a Gemini.
Jen,
I'm a Capricorn.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
what's Capricorn?
So
What
we have
month is
2 earth
Capricorn?
signs.
December?
Oh,
January.
You're
I'm a
January.
January Capricorn. I'm
Capricorn.
almost Aquarius. I'm right on the cusp.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah.
Oh, there you go. I want to do an astrology
That would
podcast
be
or
really
live
fun.
stream. Yeah, I think it's so fun. I love it as a
Yeah.
categorization system, so I'm stoked about it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Are you
Hmm?
Can you tell what I am?
don't know enough about it.
I'm a Pisces.
That was
Woohoo!
that's what I was gonna say.
Really?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Cool.
Yeah. Nice. Pisces.
You know, they
Awesome.
say Pisces gets bored quick and drops things. Are you going to drop us? Are you going to drop me?
Tell me why my PDA is like,
Yes. I don't know what to say.
She blocks me after this.
Now I am.
I don't think I drop people at this point in my life. No. No.
Interesting, yeah.
Go
I
on.
don't know. I've
Go
barely
on.
read
I
about
feel like
Pisces.
I'm pretty
but-
steadfast.
The steadfast Pisces.
Even though I am a Pisces, I feel like I give Taurus energy for some reason because I'm very grounded.
Do you have a lot of Taurus in your chart? I know I do. So
I
I get along with Taurus because
Oh,
I have
I see.
Mm.
a lot
I
of
love
Cancer.
Tauruses.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I have a Taurus 10th house, so that's why people say it kind of just is what people read, but I don't have Taurus placements outside of that. No.
Well, this would be fun to explore more.
That was a very
Yeah.
autistic ending. You'd be like, what's your sign? Like, this is really where we need to end things. Okay, ladies. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate it. Thank you guys for liking and watching the stream. And I need to change that title now because we didn't get to fashion. But I am so glad that we had our discussion. It really, guys, look at these notes. Look at these scribbles, okay? I went crazy, girl. I went, yes, ma'am. Exactly. Exactly, girls. Thank you for being here. I do appreciate it. And I will link anyone who has socials to link, as I have already in the pinned comment. I'll link it again. And I will see you guys Monday for pod and Tuesday for stream. All right, girls. See you guys for the next one.
Thank you all so much. Have a great
Bye.
rest of your day.
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye, guys.
All right. Thank you for being here on stream, guys. I'm going to go ahead and send you on your way. Thank you for being here. I really, really do appreciate it. Please like the stream, and I will see you guys again soon. Good night.